Apocalypse, the Hongmeng Pearl acknowledges its master, starting with infinite space. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement, this story is 100% epic fiction. So please don't attempt real magic, the results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 1, in the last second before I died, I finally saw how fast my brother's knife was. Roar, roar. A roar tore through the ruins, and a colossal corpse, 3 meters tall and covered in dark gold scales, roared, shaking the heavens and earth, the sound waves causing the broken walls to hum. Its steel pillar-like arms swept out, the bone spikes on its arms making a whooshing sound as they swung. The breath emanating from its mouth was full of a stench. Boom. Lin Chen hurriedly rolled to avoid the attack. The entire load-bearing wall behind him exploded with a deafening roar, sending debris flying like rain. Even though Lin Chen rolled to dodge, the bone spike still tore a deep gash across his back, the blood instantly soaking through his patched combat uniform. He gritted his teeth and propped himself up from his kneeling position, hissing, "Zhao Kai. Hold them off. Hold on a little longer. Brother Chen. I really can't hold on any longer." Zhao Kai cried out from the flank, wildly swinging his chipped alloy knife. "This monster is definitely not level 6, we can't cut through its scales at all." They had never seen a zombie covered in scales before. Not far away, the corpse of a similarly sized mutated giant ape lay on the ground, its head shattered. Clearly, its crystal core had been devoured by the monster. It had likely completed some kind of evolution. Bang! Lin Chen turned his head and saw Li Qiang collapse to the ground, his right leg torn open by bone spurs, blood gushing out. He barely managed to lift his head, his voice weak. "Brother Chen. I can't go on either." All three were injured to varying degrees, their fighting strength diminished. But in this desperate situation, Lin Chen's eyes grew increasingly cold. He stared intently at the zombie's dark scales in its eyes, which were turning from red to purple. A glint of light flashed in his eyes, its eyes have turned purple. This is a 7th-tier zombie. It swallowed a mutated beast's crystal core and has evolved. But its movements are sluggish, it must also be severely injured and at its last gasp. "Hold on, kill it, and we can turn the tide." He glared at the two men again, then got up, preparing to attack again. These two were acting strangely today, not displaying their usual strength at all. But given their years of brotherhood, he assumed they were just conserving their spiritual energy. Stop conserving your energy, use your special abilities to take him down. A 7th-tier crystal core. If they succeeded, at least one of the three would have a chance to break through the 6th-level barrier. A burning flame ignited in Lin Chen's eyes. Zhao Kai and Li Qiang exchanged a silent glance, their expressions also filled with ecstatic joy, as if they had forgotten their pain. Although the Corpse Emperor's movements were slow, his recovery speed was extremely fast. The three dared not pause their attacks for a moment. Lin Chen slashed with his longsword, while Li Qiang's fireballs and Zhao Kai's ice arrows bombarded the Corpse Emperor in turn. The Corpse Emperor ignored Lin Chen's slashing attacks and instead focused his relentless assault on the weakest of them, Li Qiang. Li Qiang charged left and right, but finally had nowhere to dodge, and was pierced through the chest by the Corpse Emperor's claw, collapsing completely. Seeing the opportunity, Zhao Kai quickly retreated to distance. The Corpse Emperor turned and pounced on Lin Chen. He had even learned to defeat them one by one. His intelligence was probably no less than that of an ordinary person. "I can't hold on. Brother Chen, think of something." Zhao Kai shouted as he retreated, his gaze sweeping across a broken wall on one side of the ruins, a hint of something unusual hidden in his tone. Thump. Lin Chen kept dodging, but the Corpse Emperor's giant fists rained down like bullets. Unable to dodge in time, he was blasted several meters away, instinctively veering to the left, but a rusty steel bar still pierced his right chest from behind. Ugh! A mouthful of blood spurted out, kicking up a cloud of dust. The intense pain surged like a tide, but it only fueled Lin Chen's ferocity. He discarded his already dulled longsword, drew a dagger from his body, channeled his last bit of strength into the blade, and shouted, "Earth escape, flash." His figure vanished abruptly, and the next instant he appeared behind the Corpse Emperor. A cold light flashed, and the dagger plunged into his skull. The heavily injured corpse emperor hadn't even had time to react. Thud. The blade pierced deeply, and Lin Chen twisted it forcefully, halting the corpse emperor's movements abruptly. His massive body crashed to the ground. A fist-sized purple crystal core rolled into the dust, making a crisp thud. Exhausted, Lin Chen knelt, reaching for the crystal core. The moment he grasped it, a chill ran down his back, and excruciating pain exploded. A level 7 crystal core. Zhao Kai's sobs had vanished, replaced by naked greed. It's mine. I finally got it. Lin Chen whirled around. Zhao Kai was holding that familiar alloy knife, its blade stained with his blood. Zhao Kai, you? Lin Chen's voice trembled. Zhao Kai grinned maliciously, kicking him to the ground and stomping on his right hand. The sound of bones cracking rang out clearly. Brother Chen, don't look at me like that. Blame it on you for being too trusting. Why? Lin Chen coughed up black blood. 5 years of life and death together. I was the one who led you to find food, shelter, and to dig through armories. Life and death together? Zhao Kai laughed. You dare call me brother? I'm older than you, yet I have to call you brother all the time? I've had enough. You're nothing but my miner, my meat shield. If it weren't for your earth is a type of magic that allows you to dig for food, I would have fed you to the zombies long ago. Now that supplies are exhausted, you are useless. He leaned closer to his ear, his voice chilling. Black Dragon said that as long as I offer up your corpse, I can become the Vice Lord of the Black Dragon Legion. Within Ming City, I will be able to command the wind and rain. Lin Chen turned his head with difficulty to look at Li Qiang. You knew all along too? The latter's eyes were empty, his chest pierced. Brother Chen. I'm sorry. You haven't found food for too long. Brother Kai promised to give me 10 cans of food. I don't want to starve to death. 10 cans of food? Lin Chen smiled bitterly. My life is only worth 10 cans of food. Zhao Kai got up impatiently and grabbed the crystal core in Lin Chen's hand. Enough nonsense. Just die in peace. I will take full advantage of your merit. He wanted to swallow the crystal core before the Black Dragon arrived and monopolized this incredible opportunity. Clap, clap. A series of applause came from the shadows of the ruins. 4 figures walked out slowly. The leader was clad in black armor, of medium height, with bulging muscles. His face was ordinary, not like a villain. Zhao Kai froze. A fawning smile plastered on his face. Brother Long. You've arrived. The crystal core is here, and the person's been taken care of. As agreed. Agreed? What agreement? Black Dragon sneered, steadily advancing forward. Have you forgotten what I hate most? Brother Long, I don't understand. Traitors. Black Dragon's voice was icy cold. Especially dogs who betray their brothers. Brother Long. You can't just abandon me after you've served your purpose. Zhao Kai's face turned deathly pale, and he retreated hastily. Before he could finish speaking, an armored warrior behind Black Dragon flashed behind him like a ghost, a dagger piercing his heart with pinpoint accuracy. You guys played me? Zhao Kai looked down at the blade tip on his chest, his pupils unfocused. Otherwise what? Black Dragon strode forward, a mocking smile playing on his lips. The 3 of you have repeatedly refused my offers. You've long been a major thorn in my side. Especially Lin Chen, he's stolen my supplies multiple times. His Earth is a type of magical ability. Ability is a liability. He surveyed his surroundings, his smile deepening. I've set up this scheme, letting you fight the Corpse King first. You kill Lin Chen, then I'll kill you. That way, I can eliminate the threat and obtain the Corpse King's crystal core. Oh, now it's the Corpse Emperor's crystal core. He threw his head back and laughed loudly. Isn't this a brilliant plan? I'll haunt you even as a ghost. Zhao Kai, enraged, vomited blood and collapsed to the ground, dying before Lin Chen. Li Qiang was also on his last breath, his eyes glazed over, his spirit broken. Lin Chen lay in a pool of blood, glancing at Zhao Kai, then at the Black Dragon, a bitter smile tugging at the corner of his lips. How, Zhao Kai actually dared to believe you? And I actually fell for such a fool. The Black Dragon laughed triumphantly. This guy is indeed stupid enough. Ha ha ha. Lin Chen's consciousness was already fading, unaware that the white bead he had picked up from the nameless Taoist temple in his chest pocket was quietly absorbing his blood, emitting a faint red glow. Black Dragon. Zhao Kai. Li Qiang. Lin Chen roared with his last breath. If there is an afterlife, I will make you pay for your blood debts. Buzz! The white bead suddenly burst into a blinding red light. The light burst forth, the surrounding blood mist churned, transforming into a crimson rainbow that pierced straight through Lin Chen's brow. A huge vortex cracked open in the ground, a howling wind raged, and debris flew everywhere. What the hell? Black Dragon roared, his eyebrows twitching wildly. Steal the crystal core. An armored warrior lunged at the crystal core, his fingertips barely touching the edge of the vortex, his entire arm shattered like glass. Ah! Before the scream could even finish, his body had turned to dust, scattering across the ground. Black Dragon's face was deathly pale as he staggered backward. What kind of power is this? In the red light, Lin Chen's body gradually became transparent. He glanced one last time at the corpses of Zhao Kai and Li Qiang, his eyes filled with venom. To hell with brothers. To hell with loyalty. The crimson mist swirled, the light dissipated, and the vortex vanished without a trace. On the ruins, only the purple crystal core remained, lying quietly in a pool of blood. And Lin Chen had vanished without a trace. Chapter 2 Awakening to Infinite Space. It's a dream, my dream. The melodious ring of his phone alarm shattered the silence on time, abruptly pulling Lin Chen back to reality from the boundless darkness. He sat up abruptly, a lingering, illusory pain in his chest, as if the blade of betrayal was still embedded in his heart. His hand instinctively went to his chest. The skin was smooth and intact, no wounds, no bloodstains, only a thin layer of cold sweat. I didn't die? He looked around, a rented room of less than 20 square meters, the walls covered with outdated posters of actresses, their edges curled and yellowed, the table piled with takeout boxes and instant noodle containers, the air thick with the smell of stale cigarette smoke and cheap laundry detergent. This was the nest he rented before the apocalypse, a typical urban island. The landlord was a notorious rent collector in the area, always wearing yellowed plastic slippers, either collecting rent or on his way to collect rent. However, this man only cared about money. As long as the rent was paid on time each month, he wouldn't bother with anything else, which made things peaceful for him. He rushed to his desk and grabbed his phone. The screen lit up, displaying the date, August 16, 2035, 8 hours, 8 minutes, and 23 seconds, 2035? August 16. Lin Chen's pupils constricted, his heart pounding. He remembered it all too clearly. The apocalypse began on September 15, 2035, at 9 a.m. The blood rain cataclysm descended globally, the zombie virus invading the human body with a rain, and human civilization collapsed overnight. In other words, he had been reborn, back to exactly 30 days before the apocalypse. It's not a dream. He pinched his thigh hard, gasping for breath in pain. I'm really back. He strode to the bathroom mirror. The man in the mirror was 25 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with distinct features, but heavy dark circles under his eyes, his gaze numb and weary, looking as if life had drained him dry. He grew up in an orphanage, with no relatives or friends. He had been in Guangzhou for half a year and had no friends. By day, he worked as a designer at a small advertising company. By night, he retreated to his room, ordering takeout, watching videos, and playing games. His life was as stagnant as still water, devoid of any ripples or hope. But now, Lin Chen suddenly laughed. His laughter was icy cold, his eyes devoid of any remaining confusion. In this life, I will live only for myself. Brothers? Loyalty? All bullshit. Zhao Kai, Li Qiang, hey long, he whispered, his knuckles clenching until they turned white and cracked. A month from now, I will kill you all with my own hands. Of the three, he hated Zhao Kai the most, the one who had once called him brother but ultimately betrayed him. Unfortunately, he had only met these people after the apocalypse. Now, they might still be drifting aimlessly in some corner of Guangzhou, or perhaps full of youthful exuberance. In this metropolis of over 20 million people, there was no way to find them. He only remembered their respective locations when the apocalypse struck. But it didn't matter. He had plenty of time to plan. As he pondered, a surge of unfamiliar information flooded his mind. The primordial creation pearl has been bound to the host's soul. Current level, level 1 function, upgrades by absorbing high-energy substances, enhances the host's life level. Randomly awakening S rank or higher superpowers, superpower level cannot exceed the current level of the creation pearl, charging cycle. 10 days contains New World Seed current space area. 400, approximately a standard basketball court, It's real. Lin Chen flipped his palm, and a white pearl, neither gold nor jade, appeared, exactly the same as the one he had worn on his chest before his death in his previous life, now gently surrounded by a pale purple halo. Immediately afterward, more information flooded in. The primordial creation pearl is a supreme treasure born at the beginning of the universe, only one in each universe, possessing the unparalleled power to recreate a world. Awakened by absorbing his dying blood, it reversed time and space, taking his soul back to the past. He gently stroked the pearl, his voice low and hoarse. "Thank you, for saving me." With a slight thought, he was instantly sucked into the pearl's space. Before him lay a hazy, mysterious realm. In the center stood a small tree, half a person's height, its entire body shrouded in purple mist, radiating spiritual energy. Not far away, a spring, about a meter square, gurgled forth, its water as clear as glass. Lin Chen crouched down, parted the soft turf beneath his feet, grabbed a handful of damp black soil, and smelled it. "I wonder if I can grow vegetables here." He walked to the tree, his fingertips lightly touching the trunk, and a message naturally appeared, the tree of primordial creation, rooted in chaos. This tree was the foundation of the space, capable of absorbing high-energy matter from the outside world for upgrades. Its roots were deeply embedded in the boundless chaos, continuously drawing energy to maintain the operation of the entire space. He then went to the spring, cupped the clear water in his hands, and drank it down. A cool sensation filled his throat, followed by a warm current that instantly spread throughout his body. At the same time, new information appeared. Creation Spring can restore spiritual power. 1 creation crystal is automatically generated daily. Lin Chen reached into the water and indeed felt a hexagonal crystal the size of a ping-pong ball, crystal clear and emitting a faint glow. Creation Crystal, effect, awakens a superpower of at least A+ level in the user, and grants loyalty to the host. The host cannot use it. Loyalty? How loyal? Lin Chen wanted to test it on someone. Looking around, besides trees, the spring, the land, and the white mist swirling around the edges, there was nothing else. He squinted, quickly processing all the information. Suddenly remembering something, he took out his phone and glanced at it. 8 hours, 15 minutes, and 48 seconds. After waiting another 5 minutes, he exited the space, and the computer time showed 8 hours, 20 minutes, and 50 seconds. The internal and external time flows were completely synchronized. Immediately, a thought struck him, and he attempted to awaken his superpower through the creation bead. S rank, infinite space, unupgradable, casting range, within 10 meters. Characteristics, infinite capacity, time freeze, ignores weight. Cooldown time, none. Note, cannot collect living beings. A warm yet powerful energy surged from the bead, flowing throughout his body. Lin Chen instantly felt his physical body and mental strength both surge dramatically, at least 5 times stronger than in his previous life. In his previous life, his A-rank Earth-type superpower initially only strengthened by 2 times. But now the effect was comparable to an A-rank enhancement superpower. Then, Lin Chen looked at his phone, and with a thought, the phone appeared in his superpower space, reappearing in his hand a minute later. The phone's time was 1 minute slower than the computer's time. After the experiment, Lin Chen's heart pounded violently. However, the unupgradable note made him pause slightly, allowing him to calm down again. According to his previous life's experience, a person can only possess 1 superpower. If this superpower cannot be upgraded, does that mean he will become a cripple? There was also the clause, his ability level cannot exceed the current level of the Creation Pearl. Did this mean that only by upgrading the Creation Pearl could his ability break through? He re-examined the information about the primordial Creation Pearl. Perhaps, it can grant me a second ability, or even more? After all, it could awaken again after being fully charged every 10 days. How could a treasure capable of reversing time and space be just a one-time use item? However, what exactly were the high-energy substances needed to upgrade it? And how difficult was it? After pondering for a moment, still not fully understanding, he simply put his questions aside for the time being, and excitement surged within him again. An S-grade infinite space to store supplies, the primordial Creation Pearl to store living things. I still have a whole month to prepare. I'm going to stockpile everything I need. Before his laughter subsided, he quickly fell into deep thought. Where was the money? He opened his bank app, and his balance was clearly displayed. 52,380. With this little money, I can't even buy enough basic supplies, let alone weapons and medicine. He narrowed his eyes. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary office worker. He didn't touch the lottery, nor dared to speculate in stocks, and had no way to get rich quickly. When conventional methods fail, extraordinary measures are necessary. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. After the apocalypse, order collapses, currency becomes worthless, and debts are naturally ignored. Without hesitation, he began increasing his Alipay credit limit, applying for loan approvals on Ant Credit Pay, obtaining temporary credit limit increases on his credit card, and simultaneously applying to multiple online lending platforms. An hour later, his account balance exceeded 860,000 yuan. The loan disbursement is really fast. Are these institutions just trying to fleece me? He sneered, then frowned, but 860,000 is still too little. His gaze darkened, and he murmured, it seems I can only fill the gap with 0 yuan purchases. For apocalyptic survivors, 0 yuan purchases are no longer a moral issue, but a survival instinct. Supermarkets, warehouses, docks, anywhere that can help one survive is fair game. Then, he opened an electronic map, his finger tracing the border, finally stopping on the map of the United States. Domestic arms control is extremely strict, and there's no way to get in on the black market. But gun ownership is legal in the US, freshwater resources are plentiful, and farms and warehouses are everywhere. A cold smile curled at the corner of his lips. Let's go there and move some supplies. However, a visa is required to travel to the US. I need to get a tourist visa as soon as possible. Ideally, I should leave within a week. He muttered to himself, while the bloodshed hasn't come. An order still exists, plane tickets can be bought, and customs clearance is possible. This is the last window of opportunity. He opened his computer and quickly compiled a concise procurement list: weapons, firearms and accessories, observation equipment, protective clothing, ammunition, cold weapons, survival, durable food, water purification equipment, common medicines and medical supplies, cold weather clothing, snowmobiles, infrastructure and energy, generators and fuel, solar energy systems, protective building materials, communication and lighting equipment, tools and special items, hand tools, high-yield crop seed bank, advanced medical kits, oxygen supply and disinfection supplies. The list became more and more detailed, and his thinking became clearer and clearer. In his past life, he survived for 5 years through caution and earth, a type of magical ability, ultimately dying from betrayal. In this life, holding a priceless treasure, how could he allow himself to be a fish on someone else's chopping block again? Just then, his phone vibrated. A message popped up in the company workgroup: boss add all members, everyone be on duty by 9 a.m. this morning. The urgent project must be completed overnight. Late arrivals will result in a deduction of full attendance bonus, and any excuses will result in immediate dismissal. Lin Chen stared at the screen, silent for 3 seconds. In his past life, he had worked 3 consecutive nights on this project, his immunity plummeting, nearly losing his life in the early stages of the apocalypse. Now? He slowly typed a line, his fingertips moving without the slightest hesitation: I quit. You can make your own PPT, you idiot. Send. Block the boss. Leave the group chat. The actions were swift and decisive. 5 years of repression, grievances, and attempts to please shattered completely at this moment. He lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling, letting out a long breath. The most important thing right now, to secure the visa and finalize the procurement. Every day before the apocalypse was precious. Chapter 3: Preparation and Second Awakening. Lin Chen sat back down at his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He was rapidly filling out a visa application form on the website of the U.S. Embassy in China. It has to be a tourist visa. His mind was exceptionally clear. Business visas require an invitation letter, and verification takes at least half a month. Students' visas take too long. Only a tourist visa is the fastest way to get back before the apocalypse. He meticulously checked the information: name, date of birth, occupation, all filled in truthfully. Only in the itinerary section did he fabricate a detailed 10-day itinerary: Hollywood in Los Angeles, the Statue of Liberty in New York City, Las Vegas. He even attached screenshots of hotel bookings that could be canceled for free, all to maximize his chances of approval. Submission successful. Results expected in 3-5 business days. Seeing the pop-up notification, Lin Chen leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh, but his fingertips still unconsciously tapped the desktop. He couldn't wait. Only 30 days remained until the apocalypse. Every minute and every second was a matter of life and death. He couldn't waste any time until the visa results were in. After packing his things, Lin Chen hurriedly left. Strolling along the bustling street, surrounded by a throng of people, some hurrying, some leisurely, some laughing, some with worried faces, Lin Chen felt a mix of emotions. 5 years in the apocalypse, struggling daily on the brink of death, had instilled in him a habit of constant vigilance and keen observation. His posture on the street now seemed somewhat strange to onlookers. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept past him. Lin Chen instinctively turned and struck with lightning speed. Bang! A delivery driver rushing from behind was tackled to the ground, his food containers scattering everywhere. Lin Chen instantly snapped back to reality. This wasn't the apocalypse, it was a peaceful scene. That gust of wind was simply the agile delivery man. The surrounding passers-by were also startled by this sudden turn of events. He quickly helped the delivery guy up, apologizing repeatedly. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." The delivery guy grimaced in pain. "Are you crazy? What did I do to you? Now the food is all spilled, how am I supposed to deliver it?" After much persuasion, Lin Chen even lied and said he was a veteran. His body, enhanced by superpowers, did indeed look somewhat like a soldier's muscular build. Seeing his sincere attitude, the crowd didn't pursue the matter further. The delivery guy, finding himself unharmed, eventually accepted 2,000 yuan in compensation and let the matter drop. Lin Chen smiled bitterly. The reactions ingrained in his bones from 5 years in the apocalypse were difficult to change overnight. He could only consciously control himself to avoid causing further trouble. If things escalated and he got detained by the police, locked up until the apocalypse arrived, he would be truly finished. He kept silently repeating to himself, "This isn't the apocalypse yet, control your emotions, stay calm." Afterwards, he first rented a van and headed straight for the largest agricultural wholesale market in Guangzhou. "Boss, 50 caddies each of rice, wheat, and corn, the latest seeds. Germination rate must meet the standard." He forced a slightly stiff smile and said to the middle-aged boss behind the counter. The boss was taken aback by his strange expression, but since he was a customer, he didn't ask too many questions and quickly replied, "Don't worry. They're all new seeds this year, germination rate over 90%. Do you want some vegetable seeds? Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, they're all easy to grow." "Yes. 10 caddies of each." Lin Chen nodded immediately, and added, "And some wild vegetable seeds, shepherd's purse, purslane, dandelion, some of each." He selected many different kinds of seeds, and the final amount exceeded 30,000. Then, he turned and walked to the next store. After browsing the wholesale market, Lin Chen drove straight to a suburban farm. Match the local pigs, goats, and cattle, male and female. Match the country dogs and tabby cats too. Match as much feed as possible for all the livestock. The boss prepared the goods efficiently. Lin Chen carefully checked the health of each cub, confirming they were free from disease and injury and capable of reproduction before loading them onto the vehicle. Taking advantage of the absence of onlookers, he subtly stored all the supplies into the primordial creation pearl. For the next few days, Lin Chen went completely crazy. Unfortunately, with limited funds, he had to resort to unconventional methods. Ornamental flowers in the community's greenbelt? He quietly dug them up. Discarded radish heads and apple cores from the market? He collected them and buried them directly in the soil of the creation pearl space. Once, while digging sweet potato vines on a hillside in the suburbs, he was caught red-handed by an old farmer. "Young man, this is my land, stop." Lin Chen smiled awkwardly. "Grandpa, I study plant diversity, could you spare some seeds for me?" "Study? Why don't you go to university?" The old farmer looked suspicious. "Just a personal hobby." Lin Chen chuckled sheepishly and slipped away. In just 5 days, he traveled all over Guangzhou, Dongguan, and Huzhou, trying to collect seeds from any useful crops. At this moment, the Hongmeng creation pearl had been completely transformed, seeds piled up into small mountains, and livestock calves strolled leisurely, yet instinctively avoided the central creation tree shrouded in purple mist and the nearby spiritual spring, as if in awe of them. His bank account balance had plummeted from 860,000 to 300,000, but Lin Chen felt an unprecedented sense of security. "It's a pity the space isn't big enough," I can only store this much for now. A thought struck him. I need to separate the livestock from the seeds to prevent them from being eaten. As soon as this thought arose, an invisible barrier materialized within the space, precisely separating the different areas. The feed was also automatically placed in place. Perfect. He breathed a sigh of relief. On the morning of the 6th day after his rebirth, a phone call came in English. Hello, Mr. Lin Chen, your U.S. tourist visa has been approved. Please come to pick it up as soon as possible. With China's current strength, the speed at which citizens apply for visas is far greater than before. I'll go today. Lin Chen's lips curled into a slight smile, his eyes gleaming with excitement. As he left the consulate, a 3-month visa was already affixed to his passport. He immediately booked a flight to Los Angeles for 3 days later on his phone and then returned to his rented apartment. For the next 3 days, he continued to race against time to prepare. On the 10th day after his rebirth, the rising sun pierced through the clouds. Lin Chen stood downstairs at his rented apartment, carrying only an empty hiking backpack. His clothes, documents, and cash had already been stored in his supernatural ability space. In 16 hours, I'll be fully charged. He sensed the creation beat in his mind and muttered to himself, a sharp glint in his eyes, if I really can gain a new supernatural ability, I hope it's something like teleportation, one of the most overpowered abilities in the apocalypse, much more practical than earth magic. The faster you run, the longer you live, the more you take, the more you eat. He took a taxi straight to the airport. The journey was smooth. Security was cleared instantly with facial recognition. After boarding, he leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes to rest. In his previous life, he had slept in ruins, piles of corpses, and sewers for 5 years. Now, being able to rest peacefully at 10,000 meters altitude was an extreme luxury. A dozen hours later, the flight attendant gently woke him. Sir, the plane is about to land at Los Angeles International Airport. Lin Chen opened his eyes and looked out the window. The sunset on the west coast was painting the sky golden and red. There was no sign of fatigue in his eyes, only alertness and an irrepressible excitement. After getting off the plane, he didn't go to any tourist attractions. He hailed a taxi and booked a mid-range hotel not far from the city center, reasonably priced, clean and tidy, with few security cameras, just what he needed. After entering the room, he carefully checked the doors, windows, curtains, and smoke detectors to make sure there were no hidden cameras before lying down on the bed to rest. Ling. The creation pearl was fully charged. With a thought, Lin Chen felt the pearl tremble slightly, and a warm energy surged through his body like a spring tide, rushing straight to his sea of consciousness. In an instant, a message appeared clearly. New ability unlocked, S rank, spatial traversal, level 1, maximum distance. 100 meters carryable weight, 3 times self-weight, currently approximately 210 kilograms, limitation, cannot penetrate high-density energy barriers. It's done. I really gained a second ability. And it's still spatial. Lin Chen sat up abruptly, joy almost overflowing from his eyes. He even couldn't help but wonder, did this bead have self-awareness? Can you talk? Let's communicate. He summoned the creation bead, gently stroking it, full of anticipation. Half an hour passed, and the bead remained unresponsive. He shook his head and chuckled, then retrieved it into a sea of consciousness. Carefully sensing the changes in his body, he discovered that this time he had only gained the ability, his physical body had not been further strengthened. It seems my current body is sufficient to handle this energy, he murmured. I was originally planning to strengthen it further. I was overthinking it. I was originally planning to proceed cautiously, but now, it seems I can go all out and do something big. He lay back down, adjusting to the time difference, and waited for nightfall. He woke up at dusk and went out to find food. He entered a restaurant that looked decent and ordered a signature set meal. The moment the spoon touched his lips, his brow furrowed. It was utterly inedible. If he hadn't grown accustomed to rough food after 5 years in the apocalypse, he probably would have left immediately. After barely finishing, he returned to the hotel, deliberately chatting with the owner to create the impression of an ordinary guest. At midnight, he silently made his way to the back alley of the hotel. The night breeze was cool, and the street lights were dim. He took a deep breath and silently chanted, "Transfer." The next second, his figure vanished like mist, leaving only a faint wisp of air behind. When he reappeared, he was already 100 meters away. Chapter 4 10 Days. Emptying the U.S. Lin Chen lightly touched the ground at the alley entrance with his toes, his figure moving silently. Smooth, precise. Almost no delay. He clenched his fist, a smile playing on his lips. This is practically cheating. 100-meter dash, no cooldown required. As long as his stamina allowed, he could traverse infinitely. As for spiritual energy, a sip of spiritual water from the creation spirit pool would suffice. Combined with his infinitely large storage space, he had become a post-apocalyptic version of the ultimate mover, unpaid, tireless, leaving not a single shelf empty. Before, with only storage space, he could only cautiously and slowly accumulate. Now, with special teleportation, a joyful smile spread across Lin Chen's face, feeling he could be even bolder. Without further hesitation, he donned the prepared black robe, pulled his baseball cap low, and his figure flickered like a ghost in the night. Just in case, he first visited a weapons shop. Hunting rifles, pistols, AR-15s, boxes of ammunition, tactical knives, bulletproof vests, night vision goggles, he took everything in the shop. The entire process was as silent as a cat's movements, unnoticed. With a gun in hand, he felt even more confident. He then turned to the nearest large supermarket. It was midnight, the supermarket was already closed. The shutters were tightly shut, and security guards were yawning and patrolling. But for Lin Chen, the door? It was just for show. He stood silently in front of the door, his mind racing. Transfer. Whoosh, he was already inside the supermarket. The lights were dim, the shelves were neatly arranged, and the air was filled with the aroma of bread and cleaning agents. Prepare for the future. He went straight to the monitoring room, taking the hard drives, mainframes, and even cloud backup devices, leaving no trace. The raid officially began. Rice, flour, canned goods, compressed biscuits, bottled water, batteries, flints, military tents, everything edible, usable, and life-sustaining supplies vanished as if swept away by a tornado. Even metal shelves were gone, leaving the floor spotless and dust-free. Perfect efficiency, he nodded in satisfaction. Like a tireless ghost, he swept through the streets and alleys of Los Angeles overnight, even sneaking into port warehouses and emptying several warehouses full of supplies. As he left, several giant ships laden with grain disappeared from the port, leaving countless crew members struggling and calling for help in the sea. As dawn broke, Lin Chen appeared at the airport with an empty bag and boarded a flight to New York City. In the early morning, shop owners opened their doors one after another, only to find themselves frozen in place. The shelves were empty, the floors were so clean they reflected light, and even the glass of the display cases was gone. Some rubbed their eyes, thinking it was a hallucination. Others frantically called the police, only to hear a busy signal. When the call finally connected, they were shocked to discover that countless shops across the city had been looted on the same night. Could it be a terrorist attack? The chief roared, slamming his fist on the table. Doesn't seem like it, a veteran detective shook his head. Would terrorists take all the toilet paper and pet food from the supermarket? This method, it's more like a madman who plunders every passing goose. In New York City that night, Lin Chen became even more crazy. By day, he wore a plaid shirt and glasses, looking like an ordinary tourist, taking photos in Times Square and feeding pigeons in Central Park. As night fell, he transformed into an urban ghost, roaming convenience stores, outdoor gear shops, and warehouse centers. He even sneaked into the private wine cellar of a Brooklyn tycoon. Can't drink 82 Lafayette in the apocalypse? Then I'll store some 92 first. The most outrageous scene occurred at the dock. He stood on the shore, gazing at the 7-story luxury cruise ship, magnificent and resplendent, with even a swimming pool and helipad on its deck. Tisk, he narrowed his eyes, such a big ship? Take it. With a thud, the entire giant ship vanished into thin air. Splash. Splash. The 2 security personnel left on board fell directly into the sea, splashing around and shouting, "Where's the ship? Where's our ship?" Lin Chen had already flashed behind a container 100 meters away, chuckling silently, "Don't shout, it will be my mobile apocalypse resort in the future." Growing bolder, he simply made his way to the outer perimeter of the naval port. Anyway, there's unlimited space, taking a few warships isn't too much to ask, he muttered to himself, just consider it as preparing some supplies for the future sea fortress. Thus, a frigate, 2 supply boats, and even a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier that was undergoing repairs there, all evaporated silently right under the noses of the U.S. Navy. The armory in the naval port was also completely emptied. In just 5 days, a series of supernatural thefts broke out in Los Angeles, New York, and other cities. Supermarkets were emptied overnight, leaving not even the shelves. Weapon stores had zero inventory, and display cases had vanished. A naval port reported that 3 ships were suspected of being hijacked by aliens, and as for the aircraft carrier that also disappeared, they didn't dare mention it at all. The FBI intervened urgently, the CIA retrieved satellite imagery, and the Department of Homeland Security activated its counter-terrorism plan, but no matter how hard they investigated, not a single footprint or fiber was left at the scene. What was even more frustrating was that Lin Chen's means of transportation and target selection were completely unpredictable and utterly illogical. Meanwhile, Lin Chen, the perpetrator, was sitting in a coffee shop in Bubby, slowly sipping his drink and scrolling through local news on his phone. Ghost thieves sweep across the East Coast, police helpless. He chuckled softly and muttered to himself, "You guys keep investigating, I'm going to Houston to move some fuel and gas reserves." 10 days later, he arrived at the last stop of his trip, Duluth. Standing before the hotel's floor-to-ceiling windows, Lake Superior shimmered, its surface like a mirror, reflecting the city lights along its shores. Fresh water is never too much, he thought, his eyes burning with fervor. If the blood rain cataclysm were to strike, 90% of the world's water sources would be polluted. How could we waste these Great Lakes, one of the purest freshwater reservoirs on Earth? Although his storage space already contained hundreds of thousands of tons of bottled water, it was always better to be safe than sorry. Night fell, and he quietly left the hotel. The lakeside was silent and deserted, save for the rustling of the reeds in the wind. He changed into a diving suit he had acquired, dived to the depths of the lake center, took a deep breath, and connected his mind completely with his supernatural space. Withdraw. In an instant, centered on him, the lake water within a 10-meter radius was instantly drawn away by an invisible force, forming a terrifying vortex 100 meters in diameter that continued to expand. Yet, he, at the core of the spherical space, was completely unaffected by the suction, remaining silent and still. The lake water surged wildly into his storage space, rapidly coalescing into a vast artificial sea. The lake level dropped at a visible speed. 1 meter, 2 meters, 5 meters. This rate of water absorption, isn't it a bit too exaggerated? Lin Chen murmured. It's important to know that the Great Lakes account for about 20% of the world's surface freshwater, and Lake Superior alone accounts for more than half of that. In just half an hour, the lake level had plummeted by nearly 10 meters. It seems the suction force of this space is a bit abnormal. I originally only intended to collect some for later use, but now, perhaps I can be even more reckless. Previously, he had mostly collected stationary objects, and hadn't truly experienced the terrifying power of this space-swallowing fluids. In less than 5 hours, Lake Superior had dried up completely, leaving only countless fish and shrimp thrashing aimlessly on the exposed lake bed. Lin Chen quickly set off, heading downstream to Lake Michigan. As dawn broke, he was already standing on the shore of Lake Ontario. The Great Lakes were now less than a meter deep, leaving behind 5 shockingly large depressions. Fishermen on both sides of the Canadian coast of the United States set out early in the morning, only to find their boats stranded on the docks, utterly dumbfounded. Where's the lake? The news spread like wildfire. Social media exploded, it's aliens. I saw a UFO hovering over the lake last night. The Earth's crust is cracking. Earth is doomed. The end of the world is coming. Stock up on supplies. Wait, why are the supermarkets empty too? When the news reached China, the tone was somewhat different. Who did this? It's not very kind, but I can't help but laugh. Just finished a beer, feeling inexplicably refreshed. Could this be karma? Panic spread like wildfire across North America, and a wave of $0 shopping swept across the entire country. The government was forced to declare martial law nationwide, entering a state of war. Meanwhile, Lin Chen stood on the dried-up lake shore, looking back at the boundless freshwater sea in the distance, feeling content. U.S. inventory, cleared out. He dusted off his hands, which were not actually dust, and turned to leave, a cold glint in his eyes. Next, time to little life. A cold smile curved his lips as he murmured, the 3 alls policy? No, this time it's complete annihilation. Chapter 5 Third Superpower, Mind Suggestion. Lin Chen had just swiped his boarding pass at Ross City Airport when he sensed something was wrong. A long, winding line stretched through the security checkpoints, where heavily armed FBI agents patrolled with grim expressions. All passengers were required to remove their hats, glasses, and masks for rigorous facial recognition. Some were even randomly taken to small rooms for secondary biometric identification. On a huge electronic screen, scarlet subtitles scrolled continuously. In light of recent major thefts of supplies and anomalies at military facilities, the entire nation is now on level II alert. Effective immediately, all non-essential international flights are suspended, and enhanced screening of departing passengers is being implemented. An invisible tension hung in the air. Lin Chen stood in the shadows at the edge of the crowd, a cold smile playing on his lips. How, finally realized it? Too bad, too late. Forcing his way through is not the best option. The United States was like a powder keg. Any spark could ignite the entire nation. Flights to East Asia, in particular, were likely already on the FBI and Department of Homeland Security's watch list. He stroked his chin, his gaze seemingly passing beyond the faint outline of the Great Lakes outside the window, settling on the maple leaf patterned land to the north. If flights are blocked, then, change direction, go through Canada. His mind made up, he set out that very night. Under the cover of darkness, he returned to the Great Lakes. The lake shores, recently washed by him, were muddy, the exposed lakebed gleaming slippery in the moonlight. Skip. His figure vanished in an instant, reappearing 100 meters away. Without pause, he flashed again, repeating this cycle endlessly, drawing an invisible zigzag across the silent North American wilderness. 4 hours of high-intensity space jumps had almost completely drained him. When he reached a secluded roadside in Canada, his legs felt weak, and his temples throbbed. But he simply wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, caught his breath briefly, and continued towards the direction of town lights. There were no piercing alarms, no border guards. In this seemingly orderly world before the apocalypse, borders were impenetrable for ordinary people, but to him, a reborn individual with unconventional methods, they were merely dotted maps he could traverse at will. The nights in Canada were tranquil and peaceful, like a fairy tale. Lin Chen casually found a cheap hotel to stay in. After a hot shower, he threw himself onto the soft but somewhat thin mattress, staring at the fine cracks in the ceiling, his thoughts churning. At midnight, my third ability will be unlocked, he muttered to himself, a calculating glint in his eyes. This time, I hope it's an ability to manipulate people's hearts. The lessons of his past life were etched in his memory. Too many times, he wasn't defeated by a lack of strength, but by a pointless reverence for rules, a naive trust in order, and those laughable notions of loyalty in the apocalypse. The apocalypse had no rules, only the jungle law of survival and a cruel truth shrouded in lies. Invisibility? Too passive, only good for hiding. Lightning? Powerful but too conspicuous, making one a target. Healing? I don't need to play the savior. His gaze sharpened in the dim room. What I need is, to make people willingly follow my will, even to make them genuinely believe it's the right choice. As the clock hands quietly overlapped, midnight fell. The primordial creation pearl deep within his consciousness trembled slightly, and a familiar warm energy surged forth again, flowing through his limbs and bones, finally imprinting a new mark on his consciousness. S rank, mind suggestion, level 1, effect, increases mental strength tenfold. Through brief eye contact, a clear instruction can be implanted into an individual with lower mental strength than himself. The target will view the instruction as a reasonable and voluntary action. The effect lasts for 10 minutes. Limitations: cannot command the target to commit suicide or perform actions that severely violate their survival instincts. After the instruction ends, the target will have a vague memory of the relevant information, but without a mental anguish caused by forced manipulation. Perfect. Lin Chen's eyes flashed with a sharp light, almost chuckling aloud. This isn't simple hypnosis, this is higher dimensional consciousness guidance, a meticulously woven reasonable trap. At this point, he could basically conclude that the primordial creation pearl was no inanimate object. There must be some kind of intelligence or supreme rule behind it. Once or twice might be a coincidence, but this third awakening of his ability, responding so precisely to his inner desires, was already conclusive evidence. The next morning, he changed into a neatly pressed light-colored shirt, his hair meticulously combed, looking every bit the young businessman, and walked into Toronto Grand Central Station. His goal was clear: to buy a connecting flight ticket to Tokyo. The difficulty lay in the series of hurdles he needed to overcome: passport checks, visa verification, and exit inspections. This was almost an impossible task for an ordinary person, but he now possessed a cheat code. Behind the ticket window was a smiling, blonde, blue-eyed young female employee with a name tag that read Emily. Lin Chen stepped forward, handed over his passport, and said politely, "Hello, I need a ticket to Tokyo today, the sooner the better." Emily took the passport, habitually flashing a professional smile, and was about to start working on the system. The instant she looked up, Lin Chen leaned forward slightly, their eyes meeting directly. A faint, almost imperceptible light seemed to flicker in the depths of his pupils for a fleeting moment, so quick it was almost an illusion. "Please look me in the eye, Emily." His voice was deep and steady, carrying a strange, reassuring power. Emily's typing paused almost imperceptibly for half a second, a brief moment of confusion crossing her eyes, but she quickly returned to normal, only her smile seemed more genuine, even carrying a touch of personal warmth. "Mr. Lin, your passport information, the system is showing a slight delay." Her voice remained gentle, but she proactively offered a solution. "But please don't worry, I can activate a special channel for manual processing for you." "Are you traveling for urgent business?" "Yes, there's a very important meeting." Lin Chen nodded in agreement. "Understood." Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I found the next flight for you with a layover in Vancouver. There's just one seat left in first class. I've upgraded you for free. Hope you have a comfortable journey." Lin Chen could barely suppress the corners of his mouth from turning up. This wasn't just an ordinary ticket seller. She was clearly a thoughtful personal travel concierge. In less than 10 minutes, he walked out of the station with a brand new boarding pass and itinerary in hand. Behind him, Emily waved enthusiastically. "Have a safe trip, Mr. Lin. Looking forward to serving you again." He turned around and gave her an impeccable smile. "Thank you, Emily. Remember to drink plenty of hot water during breaks and take care of yourself." When Lin Chen stepped out of Tokyo Narita Airport, night had fallen. Customs checks were much more lenient in Tokyo compared to the US. After all, who would have thought that this seemingly ordinary young tourist had recently caused half of North America's supplies to mysteriously evaporate? He checked into a capsule hotel with a distinctly local flavor. By day, he perfectly embodied the curious backpacker, posing for photos in front of the Kaminari Gate at Sensoji Temple, lingering in the electronics district of Akihabara, and gazing at luxury shop windows in Ginza. But as night fell, he transformed once more into the ghost of winter Kyoto. Convenience stores? From the checkout counter to the warehouse, he emptied them. Drugstores? Shelves and inventory, he took them all. Seemingly ordinary weapon model shops? Real guns and ammunition hidden in basement compartments? He accepted them with a smile. He even infiltrated the secret storage warehouse of a large conglomerate, mountains of kashi hickory rice, vintage sake, premium miso, and freezers of top-grade Wagyu beef, as if he had encountered the most thorough-moving service in history. In Yokosuka port, he spotted a maritime self-defense force replenishment ship on standby. "You're the future mobile maritime stronghold." He gently patted the cold hull, his thoughts enveloping the ship, and it vanished without a trace. In just 5 days, Winter Kyoto, Osaka, and Mikokuya all suffered. The convenience store owner stared at the empty shelves, tears welling up in his eyes. "Where are my rice balls? They didn't even leave me a single piece of the packaging seaweed." The police report stated, it appears to have been a systematic robbery by a highly organized and technologically advanced overseas theft group. Online discussions were even more fantastical. It must be aliens. Did it their American daddy confirm it? Would aliens care about your toilet paper and rice balls? This is clearly a superpowered crime. Ha ha ha, the world is going to be in chaos. Chaos breeds heroes, my chance has come. As for domestic netizens, upon learning of this, there was an even more. Celebrations erupted. 666, amazing. Our ancestors have appeared. We common folk are truly overjoyed. Meanwhile, Lin Chen, at the eye of the storm, sat calmly in a quaint tea house in Kyoto, leisurely sipping slightly bitter matcha, his fingertips swiping across his phone screen, browsing the latest news. Urban cleaners suspected of appearing in Kyoto, their modus operandi highly similar to the North American ghost cases. Experts speculate it may be the work of the same international criminal organization. He took a sip of tea, a hint of mockery flashing in his eyes. Let the detectives deduce slowly. My vacation is over. Final goal, return to Guangzhou. Only 5 days left until the apocalypse. The old method, the safest. He narrowed his eyes. That night, at Osaka Kansai International Airport, another Japanese ticket seller's eyes briefly glazed over before enthusiastically processing a first-class ticket for a passenger named Lin Chen to Guangzhou, China. Lin Chen straightened his collar and, under the other person's respectful gaze, swaggered towards the boarding gate. Chapter 6. Returning home, Flight Attendant Li Yang. The plane roared into the sky, the engine vibrations gradually fading into a steady groan. Lin Chen leaned back in the slightly hard economy class seat, letting out a long, slow exhale, a breath he felt he had been holding for 15 days. From Los Angeles to New York, from clearing out the Great Lakes in Duluth, to sweeping across the Little Japan Islands, and now boarding his flight home, he was like a programmed apocalyptic harvester, wreaking havoc on the lands of the US and Little Japan. Supermarket shelves were emptied, military port supplies vanished into thin air, the Great Lakes water levels plummeted, and even maritime self-defense force ships mysteriously disappeared. The value of civilian goods alone was incalculable, not to mention the 10,000-ton cargo ships, destroyers, and even entire armories that had quietly entered his space. This account had probably already exceeded $1 trillion. The two countries across the ocean were now shrouded in gloom. American supermarkets are so empty you can see your reflection in them, and housewives are arguing over the last roll of toilet paper. The FBI director roars at a hearing, "This is no ordinary theft. This is a terrorist attack on the lifeline of the nation." Convenience stores have been out of rice balls for 3 consecutive days, and young people lament, "What's the point of life without seaweed rice balls?" The Metropolitan Police Department's Special Investigation Headquarters for Ghost Cleaners, which was urgently established, has yet to be able to retrieve a single frame of valid surveillance footage. The online world was in an uproar. North American supermarkets turned into bare shells overnight, not even a mop was left. Are the Great Lakes about to be drained? Are aliens coming to Earth to build infrastructure? The Tokyo tycoon lamented, their 30-year-old steak collection was stolen, even the bottle. The comments section was already exploding. This is definitely a doomsday prophet acting ahead of time. No, this is clearly the strongest warehouse manager and mover in history. Please, someone take me in. I can cook and warm your bed, and I have an extremely strong will to survive. Meanwhile, Lin Chen, the instigator of all this, was currently resting with his eyes closed, his face calm and gentle, looking no different from any other tired returning traveler. Only he knew that he was silently reciting a slightly mocking adaptation, "I came softly, just as I leave softly, waving my sleeves, leaving not a trace, but taking away all your inventory." The apocalypse was less than 5 days away. After this ordeal, the population of the US and Japan that will survive until the end of the world will probably be less than 1/10 of what it was in my previous life. A faint smile played on his lips, his heart undisturbed. In his previous life, when the zombie apocalypse struck, it was nighttime in America, and the initial survivors were actually more numerous. After gaining superpowers, they even developed ambitions to rule the world. And when the sea level rose, the Little Days attempted to re-land on the mainland via South Korea. Although they were ultimately wiped out by the superpowered individuals from northeast China, they also inflicted heavy losses on the northeasterners. Now, everything he was doing was merely collecting a tiny, insignificant interest in advance. As his thoughts raced, a clear and gentle voice sounded beside him, "Sir, would you like a drink?" Lin Chen slowly opened his eyes. When he saw the face in front of him, his pupils suddenly contracted, and a hint of surprise flashed across his face. He had seen this person in his previous life. The flight attendant standing in front of him had a standard oval face, simple pearl earrings adorning her ears, and her hair was neatly styled in a bun. Her makeup was delicate and refined, her eyes gentle, and a perfectly timed professional smile played on her lips. Her beauty was undeniable. She was approximately 1.72 meters tall, and her dark blue uniform accentuated her slender waist and graceful curves. Every movement exuded a well-trained elegance and poise. Her name tag bore 2 neat Chinese characters, Li Yang. Seeing that Lin Chen didn't respond immediately, she smiled and softly repeated, "Sir, would you like something to drink?" Lin Chen quickly composed himself, regaining his composure, and smiled slightly. "A glass of water, thank you." "Okay, please wait a moment." She deftly retrieved a paper cup from the food cart, poured in hot water, and offered it with both hands, her fingertips never touching the cup's surface. Her movements were fluid and gentle. Then, she turned and pushed the cart to serve the next passenger. Leah was already used to Lin Chen's momentary lapse in composure. In her eyes, he was just another stranger stunned by her beauty, at most a polite one. As she passed through business class, the successful men either engaged in loud business discussions or deliberately lowered their voices to make calls that revealed their status. Some casually loosened their ties, flashing their expensive watches, all gestures aimed at attracting the attention of this stunning flight attendant. I didn't expect to run into her here, Lin Chen thought to himself, watching her graceful figure disappear into the distance. He had indeed seen this woman in his past life. In the apocalypse, beauty was the cheapest asset, yet also the most deadly burden. He had witnessed too many so-called goddesses become playthings, slaves, or even transformed into living containers for storing crystal cores. As for the men in business class flaunting their worldly strength, everything they relied on would vanish in an instant in the impending collapse of the world. However, there were still 5 days until the apocalypse. Order still existed, and rules remained. Someone like him, seemingly an ordinary loser, could only catch a glimpse of a woman like Leah from afar. Lin Chen chuckled self-deprecatingly, closed his eyes again, and sank into his thoughts. 5 hours later, the plane landed smoothly at Guangzhou Baiyun International Airport. Lin Chen took a taxi back to his familiar rented apartment. Pushing open the door, a faint musty smell mixed with a stench of dust hit him. The first thing he did upon entering was head straight to the bathroom and turn on the shower. The cool water cascaded down, washing away the sticky sweat and the weariness of days of travel. Wrapped in a towel, he stood in front of the mirror, water droplets rolling down his firm and well-proportioned shoulders and back. His muscles were smooth and defined, possessing the explosive power of a leopard, without an ounce of excess fat. This body was far healthier and stronger than it had been in the early days of the apocalypse in his previous life. With this physique alone, without using my superpowers, I could easily take on 30 strong adult men single-handedly. He murmured to himself in the mirror. In this life, thanks to the early awakening and repeated tempering of his superpowers, his body had already surpassed the limits of ordinary humans. He was no longer the ant he once was, forced to rely on flattery, forbearance, and clumsy earth. Earth is a type of magical ability, to survive. Get a good night's sleep, he told himself. After the apocalypse, even 6 hours of continuous sleep will be a luxury. Supplies were stockpiled, and the plan was progressing steadily. His heart, once shattered by betrayal and despair, finally felt a long-lost peace. He slept a particularly deep sleep. No zombie howls pierced his dream, no bone spikes whistled through the air, no Zhao Kai's ferocious laughter, no Li Kang's numb and empty eyes, and certainly no Black Dragon's cold and cruel gaze. There was only the occasional sound of passing cars outside the window, the rhythmic melody of the most dazzling ethnic style playing in the distant square, the daily bickering of the couple downstairs, and the intermittent notes of the neighbor's child practicing the piano. These sounds, unique to the old world and destined to be lost after the apocalypse, now soothed his once wounded soul like the gentlest lullaby. He didn't wake naturally until 2 p.m. the following afternoon, when the intense sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting dappled patterns of light and shadow on the floor. He stretched, his joints cracking and popping, as if every bone was celebrating his complete rebirth. After a quick wash, he changed into a clean, comfortable t-shirt and jeans. He locked the door and went downstairs. Outside, the sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze blew. He walked briskly towards the old wonton noodle shop on the street corner, a business that had been in business for over 20 years. Chapter 7: The Last Wonton Noodles Before the End of the World. Lin Chen pushed open the glass door of the noodle shop, and the familiar aroma of pork bones mixed with the smell of fried food wafted out. The owner was still Uncle Wang, the same bald, round-faced man with wrinkles around his eyes when he smiled. "Little Lin? It's been a while." Uncle Wang looked up and immediately put down the strainer in his hand, greeting him warmly, his smile as simple and honest as the broth in the bowl. "Yet, I went on a long business trip," Lin Chen replied casually, sitting down in his usual spot against the wall. The usual, a bowl of shrimp wontons, a plate of radish and beef brisket noodles, a plate of fried wontons, and a glass of chilled plum juice. As soon as he finished speaking, the familiar clanging of pots and pans and the sizzling of hot woks echoed from the kitchen. Before long, 4 delicacies were served. The wonton wrappers were as thin as silk, revealing the pink outline of the shrimp inside, each bite revealing a whole, bouncy, sweet filling, The braised beef brisket was tender and flavorful, the dark brown chunks of meat immersed in a rich broth, the aroma of star anise and chuhao sauce wafting through the air. The fried wontons were golden and crispy, dipped in a special spicy sauce, the smoky outer layer and the tender filling bursting in the mouth, a simple happiness that soared to the heavens. He ate extremely slowly, each bite like a silent farewell ceremony. After the apocalypse, all of this would become an unattainable dream. This was no exaggeration. After the blood rain, water sources and farmland were polluted, and the global supply chain completely collapsed. Let alone a bowl of freshly made and cooked wonton noodles like this, even a packet of unexpired instant noodles would be enough to exchange for a Glock loaded with bullets. He had witnessed a man, with trembling hands, strangle his 10-year-old brother to death over half a piece of moldy bread. Thinking of this, he picked up the last wonton in his bowl, gently put it in his mouth, closed his eyes, and chewed slowly. The delicious taste spread across his tongue, as if he were swallowing the last warmth of a bygone, warm era. Having eaten and drunk his fill, he took out his wallet. Inside were only a crumpled 300-odd yuan in change. The money, it's all gone after all. He forced a bitter smile. In just over 20 days, 860,000 yuan in cash had been exchanged for mountains of supplies in his supernatural space, a 10,000-ton grain warehouse, a complete arsenal, a ship full of fuel, and even several modern warships, but his pockets in reality were almost empty. How ironic. Before the apocalypse, you couldn't move an inch without money. After the apocalypse, banknotes would become utterly worthless. Little Lin, are you done eating? Round it down, 30 will do. Uncle Wang waved his hand as always, his honest face full of sincerity, while deftly wiping the table next to him. Lin Chen didn't refuse, but simply placed the 30 yuan on the table. Before leaving, he paused, lowered his voice, and said to Uncle Wang, who was still tidying up, "Uncle Wang, remember, on the 16th, don't go anywhere, just stay home and lock the door." After saying that, before the owner could react from his daze, he had already turned around, pushed open the door, and disappeared into the bustling street outside. Standing in the bright afternoon sun, he looked at the still prosperous snack street before him, steaming rice noodle rolls. Sweet desserts wafting from the stalls, clay pot rice sizzling on the stove, double skim milk trembling in the bowl. Each one was the last bit of tenderness and gift that the world could give before the end of the world. "If only I had a little more money," he murmured, gazing at the dazzling array of stalls. "At least I could stock up on more of this cooked food." Unfortunately, reality was harsh. These delicious, heartwarming meals couldn't be bought for free. He could only reluctantly give them up, a touch of regret in his heart. Turning to head home, his steps seemed light, but his heart was heavy. Only 4 days remained until the apocalypse. The old town he rented, less than a square kilometer in area, was crammed with nearly 50,000 people. Buildings stood side by side, windows faced each other, and alleys were so narrow that two people side by side had to turn sideways. In his previous life, this place had become a breeding ground for zombies and a living hell the moment the blood rain fell, completely overrun on the first day. If he hadn't been lucky enough to awaken his A-level Earth-type ability, Earth Escape, he wouldn't have survived those initial chaotic and disparate 72 hours. In this life, thanks to the creation Pearl, he had gained a more powerful special ability ahead of time, but he didn't know if the Earth Escape that had saved his life countless times would still arrive as promised. Guangzhou, a megacity with over 20 million inhabitants, was destined for a hellish start on the first day of the apocalypse. According to memories from a previous life, the blood rain that would change everything would last for 3 full days. Anyone touched by the raindrops would begin to show signs of zombie-like transformation within 5 minutes to an hour, completely turning into bloodthirsty, devouring zombie within 10 seconds. Only a very lucky few would awaken supernatural abilities during this terrifying metamorphosis, but the probability was less than 1 in a million, and the process was extremely dangerous, with a near-certain death rate. A more reliable way to awaken supernatural abilities was to hunt zombies, extract the grayish-white energy cores condensed in their brains, and consume them. The success rate was higher, and the risks were relatively controllable. However, in the early stages of the apocalypse, humanity was completely unaware of this. By the time this experience, bought with countless lives, spread, it was already the 3rd day of the apocalypse, and the most precious opportunity for development had been missed. Later generations classified supernatural talents into 7 levels, from lowest to highest, F, E, D, C, B, and S. In his previous life, Lin Chen was an A-rank zombie. He managed to survive the perilous 5th year of the apocalypse thanks to his self-taught Earth escape skill. The comprehension of supernatural abilities is closely related to one's aptitude, experiences, and even obsessions. A higher rank doesn't guarantee the mastery of powerful skills. As for zombies, their ranks are visually distinguished by eye color: black, white, blue, yellow, green, red, and purple. The lowest rank, Tier 1 zombies, have jet black eyes, move slowly, and have low intelligence, but possess physical strength far exceeding that of ordinary humans. Only by destroying their heads can they be completely killed. They can continuously evolve by devouring living people, mutated beasts, or absorbing the strange energy permeating the world. The highest rank, Tier 7 Corpse Emperor, possesses purple pupils, a terrifying existence Lin Chen first encountered before his rebirth. From the Corpse King onwards, high-ranking zombies possess some intelligence and can command hordes of zombies, while the Corpse Emperor possesses wisdom comparable to that of ordinary humans. Even more terrifying was that any food or water directly contaminated by the blood rain, or subsequently contaminated by polluted water sources, would cause infection upon consumption. Although the blood rain only lasted 3 days, it was immediately followed by a global extreme freezing period. The following year, a seamless transition occurred into a year-long scorched earth period. In the 3rd year, sea levels began to rise wildly, submerging coastal cities worldwide within a month, eventually stabilizing after rising by 1,000 meters. Humanity's living space was drastically compressed. Every year, different and increasingly severe natural disasters ravaged the land. Add to that the endless zombies and mutated beasts on land, and countless terrifying mutated sea monsters lurking in the deep sea. In such a chaotic era, living itself was torture. Only the truly strong could barely afford to talk about life. What haunted Lin Chen most was that, even in the 5th year of the apocalypse, on the eve of his rebirth, humanity still hadn't figured out the source of this global catastrophe. In this life, he not only had to survive, but he had to live long enough and strong enough to witness the day the truth was revealed. He looked around the crowded, noisy, yet vibrant old town again, his eyes narrowing slightly. Using this place as the starting point for the apocalypse? It was tantamount to deliberately jumping into a high-speed meat grinder. With his current strength, he wasn't afraid, but there was no need to put himself in danger. But completely staying away from the densely populated city center wasn't an option either. He needed zombies, the crystal cores in their brains, and the ability to quickly upgrade his abilities and increase his strength. He had to find a delicate balance, a relatively sparse population, allowing for controllable initial zombie density, proximity to the city center for easy access to various resources, sturdy buildings for easy defense and modification, and convenient transportation to allow for later expansion or relocation. He sat back down at the old desk in his rented room, his fingers unconsciously tapping the surface, his mind racing as if a detailed electronic map of Guangzhou unfolded in his head. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and his fingertips stopped at a certain spot on the map, the east of the city, the university town. The population structure there was unique. During the start of the semester, the large influx of teachers and students would indeed create an initial zombie horde, but if cleared out, the surviving university students would be excellent labor and a valuable asset. Even better, next to the university town was a newly built, low-density villa area with high green coverage, uniform and sturdy walls, and mostly detached or terraced houses, offering excellent privacy. It perfectly met all his needs. The advantages of the villa area were obvious. The houses were sturdy and reliable, most with basements that could be quickly converted into fortified defenses in special circumstances. The community roads were wide and well-planned, allowing unimpeded vehicle access. Its proximity to the university town meant having a controllable, initial crystal core and labor supply point, facilitating a quick retreat to a safe location to rest after obtaining crystal cores from killing zombies in the early stages. Most importantly, the villa area itself was relatively spacious with low population density, resulting in initially dispersed zombies. This place was perfect for a visionary like him to systematically clear out each building and steadily develop it, turning it into a solid initial base. That's it. Lin Chen stood up. He didn't have much to pack, there was nothing left to take from this rented room. If he could find a suitable villa, he could simply move in with his bags. Outside the window, the setting sun slowly sank behind the rows of high-rise buildings, and the city lights began to glow, adorning it with vibrant colors. On the streets, Couples strolled hand in hand, children chased and laughed, and elderly people leisurely walked their dogs, a scene of peaceful tranquility, a picture of everyday life. At this moment, no one knew that 4 days later, this seemingly tangible prosperity would plunge into an endless hell. Night fell. Lin Chen took a taxi to the outskirts of the villa area he had already identified in the east of the city. He paid and got out of the car, his figure silently disappearing into the darkness beside the wall, like a drop of ink falling into water. His apocalyptic fortress would begin to be built tonight, from here. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Villa Renovation. Under the cover of the thick darkness, Lin Chen quietly slipped into a quiet, upscale villa area on the outskirts of the university town in the east of the city. Moonlight, like quicksilver, flowed silently across the silhouettes of European-style pointed roofs and the meticulously manicured lawns. A night breeze swept through, swirling a few withered leaves and making a soft rustling sound. His figure, like a ghost blending into the night, moved with astonishing speed, easily avoiding the view of all the surveillance cameras. As he moved quickly, he made precise, low-pitched assessments of the houses along the way. That light is still on, someone's there, ruled out. This yard is too small, and the wall is low. Tisk, the windowsill is piled high with instant noodle boxes and delivery bags, group rental. On the first day of the apocalypse, internal competition for resources will drive them to their deaths. This apartment, red underwear hanging out to dry with a Tai Chi uniform? Could it be some kind of suspicious senior citizen health retreat? Infrared cameras, ground sensor alarms, and regularly patrolling electric property management vehicles were all useless against him. The teleportation over 100 meters was silent and undetectable, leaving not even a blurry afterimage in the surveillance footage. About an hour later, he stopped in a lakeside area of detached villas. The villa before him, estimated to occupy over an acre, had a building area of 500 square meters, 3 stories high plus 2 basement levels. The light gray natural stone exterior appeared solid and imposing under the moonlight. Huge floor-to-ceiling windows were equipped with an intelligent blackout system, and the courtyard even featured the outline of a dried-up swimming pool. The overall structure was sturdy and intact, exuding a restrained grandeur. Most importantly, the entire house was pitch black, showing no signs of human habitation. This is it, Lin Chen's eyes flashed, and he made his decision. With a slight thought, whoosh. The next second, he found himself in the center of the villa's spacious living room. The luxurious crystal chandelier wasn't lit, but the cool moonlight streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the gleaming marble floors, the high-quality leather sofas, the built-in temperature-controlled wine cabinet, and the fully equipped open kitchen. The furniture was complete, the materials exquisite, yet it was excessively clean and tidy. No takeout containers, no carelessly placed slippers, no clothes drying, and even the double-door refrigerator was empty. 3 floors above ground, 2 below. The first floor has a maid's room and guest rooms, the second floor has master and secondary bedroom suites, the third floor has a large terrace and a multifunctional home theater, the basement has a garage, storage room, gym, and even an indoor temperature-controlled swimming pool. He inspected each floor, unable to suppress a soft chuckle. I wonder whose secret base this is. I'm really lucky. Even more intriguing was the fact that the entire house was clearly meticulously maintained regularly, yet obviously unoccupied, a typical reserved property for the wealthy, perhaps intended for occasional vacations or special purposes. He strode upstairs and went straight to the master bedroom. With a thought, he retrieved a brand new, exquisitely textured Egyptian long staple cotton bedding set from his creation bead space. In the 5th year of the apocalypse in his previous life, he had slept beside piles of corpses, in leaky tin sheds, and even in the stench-filled mutated beast nests. Lying on such a comfortable bed now was the ultimate luxury before the end of the world. After neatly making the bed, he took a long, hot shower in the luxurious bathroom attached to the master bedroom. The warm water washed over his tense muscles and nerves. He closed his eyes, savoring this last peaceful moment before the storm. That night, he slept exceptionally soundly. For the next 3 days, he completely transformed into a post-apocalyptic fortress builder. He began work at the crack of dawn, retrieving pre-prepared military-grade bulletproof composite steel plates, high-strength steel mesh, and quick-setting concrete from his infinite space. He focused on reinforcing all doors and windows, as well as the entrances to the basement. Even the heavy metal door leading to the underground garage was rewelded and reinforced. On the roof, he installed several large water tanks, filled them with fresh water, and covered them with bulletproof steel plates to withstand the pressure that the upcoming extreme weather might cause. The original decorative fence around the villa was replaced with a sturdy explosion-proof steel wall. In addition to defense, the main focus of the renovation was the insulation function, with various insulation materials and equipment constantly being installed. The construction noise inevitably attracted the attention and dissatisfaction of neighboring villas. Lin Chen would take out a few bottles of top-quality French red wine or rare Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee beans from his special storage and casually gift them to the neighbors who came to inquire, easily resolving the conflict. In any case, this villa was just an initial base for him, and the current level of reinforcement was enough to cope with the initial chaos of the apocalypse. When he was tired, he would rest, and when he woke up, he would continue working. No one disturbed him. The only sounds were the continuous rustling of the wind through the leaves and the occasional distant barking of dogs, a sound of peace from the past. Time flew by in focused silence, the 30th day after his rebirth, September 14th, 9 a.m. The final 24 hours before the apocalypse. Lin Chen got up early and meticulously prepared a sumptuous breakfast for himself, golden brown fried eggs on both sides, fragrant bacon, perfectly toasted bread, and a cup of freshly ground, aromatic coffee. All the ingredients were top-quality imports from the United States, purchased for free. After this meal, by this time tomorrow, I might be staring blankly at compressed biscuits and murky water, he chuckled self-deprecatingly, his tone calm. Just as he was clearing away the dishes, his ear twitched slightly. Footsteps. Extremely faint, yet exceptionally clear, coming from the gravel path in the villa's front yard, interspersed with the soft, metallic clinking of keys. Lin Chen's eyes suddenly turned icy, and he moved with lightning speed, instantly and silently disappearing behind the heavy door of the entryway. Click, the key was precisely inserted into the lock and turned gently. The door opened. A tall, slender figure walked in. She wore a beige linen casual suit, her long hair casually tied back, a classic LV handbag slung over her shoulder, and her gait exuded an air of pampered ease. The moment she stepped into the living room, before her eyes had even adjusted to the light, Lin Chen pounced like a cheetah pouncing. His left hand, like an iron clamp, instantly locked her slender neck, his right hand tightly covering her mouth before she could scream. Simultaneously, with a deft flick of his toe, the heavy wooden door behind him slammed shut with a bang. The woman stiffened violently, then began to struggle desperately. Her sharp high heels lashed at his sheen, while her elbows slammed into his ribs. Her reaction speed and the force of her counterattack far surpassed that of an ordinary woman. "Don't move," Lin Chen whispered in her ear, his voice low but icy cold, as if it could sip out of her. "Move again, and I'll snap your neck." With the apocalypse approaching, he had long since cast aside any sense of pity or moral constraints. Chapter 9. Seeing Li Ye again. Feeling the undeniable, terrifying strength and murderous intent against her neck, the woman was forced to stop struggling, her chest heaving violently from fear and lack of oxygen. A clear, delicate scent, as if mixed with cedar and white tea, quietly entered Lin Chen's nostrils. He slowly released his hand from her mouth, but the grip of his other hand remained unchanged, forcing her to turn around. A few rays of morning sunlight pierced through the gap in the curtains, illuminating her face. Lin Chen's pupils suddenly contracted. "It's you." It was Li Yan, the elegant flight attendant from the return flight. She was also the woman he had accidentally saved in his past life, who had later helped him in return. Still shaken, Li Yan recognized her captor's face and was also startled, finding him strangely familiar, but unable to recall where she had seen him before. "You? Who are you? What do you want?" Her voice trembled uncontrollably, but deep in her eyes, besides fear, a forced composure remained. "Is this your home?" Lin Chen asked instead of answering, his gaze sharp as a knife. "Yes, it's a birthday present from my father." She bit her lower lip, her voice still trembling. "He's Li's Hongmeng of South China Real Estate. I'm his illegitimate daughter. Please don't hurt me, I can give you a lot of money." Lin Chen's heart skipped a beat. Li's Hongmeng? That real estate tycoon whose businesses span the entire country, known as Li Half City? So, You're just here to check on the handover of the house? Not entirely. She shook her head, a trace of sadness flashing in her eyes. I'm here to collect some old things my mother left here. After she passed away, I dismissed the servants here and moved out myself, and I haven't come back since. Lin Chen was silent for a moment. No wonder he had seen a photo of a middle-aged woman and some old belongings in a room on the second floor before, but he hadn't investigated it deeply at the time. With your status, you're not short of money at all. Why did you become a flight attendant? He continued to press, his tone softening slightly. Becoming a flight attendant was my own choice. She lowered her eyes, her long eyelashes casting a small shadow beneath her eyelids. I just wanted to see what I could do without his fame and wealth. Lin Chen led her to the living room sofa, loosening his grip slightly, but not completely letting go. Listen, I'm not a robber, and I'm not here for money. He paused, then made his decision. For the next 24 hours, as long as you cooperate, I won't hurt you. But you can't leave this house. He took her handbag from the side, quickly checked it, and confirmed her phone was inside. Are you illegally detaining me? She frowned, her tone a mixture of anger and confusion. It's not confinement. Lin Chen's tone was calm but undeniable. At least within this villa, you are free. Aren't you afraid I'll find a chance to sneak away, or call the police? Lin Chen didn't answer, but his body moved without warning. Whoosh! His figure vanished into thin air, and the next second he was leisurely leaning against a carved handrail of the second-floor spiral staircase. Another flash, whoosh! He was standing in front of her again, close enough to feel each other's breath. Now, do you still think you can escape? Lia's beautiful eyes widened instantly, and the fear on her face receded like a tide. Instead, she was filled with a pure and fervent excitement and curiosity, almost like a young girl. You can teleport. Are you a god? No, I'm not a god, Lin Chen stated calmly. It's just one of my superpowers, called space travel. Superpower. Those two words seemed to light up the stars in her eyes, the light almost overflowing. Wow. That's so cool. Can you teach me? I want to learn too. Lin Chen was stunned by her words, completely unprepared for things to develop in this direction. I can't teach you, he said helplessly. How old are you this year? 22. She blurted out almost immediately, and two faint blushes rose on her fair cheeks. She added softly, then, what about you? Do you have a girlfriend? No. Then. She blinked, her long eyelashes fluttering like butterfly wings. Her voice suddenly became soft and gentle, with a hint of probing and playfulness. How about I be your girlfriend? Lin Chen was speechless for a moment. He had imagined a scene of questioning, crying, fierce resistance, or even a desperate attempt to fight for his life. But he never expected that in just a few minutes, she would transform from a terrified hostage into a superpower fangirl with eyes full of admiration. Her face practically screamed, "Brother is so amazing, I want to follow you." He turned around with a slight headache and walked towards the open kitchen, trying to steer the conversation back on track. Anyway, it's a fact that I occupied your house. As an apology, are you hungry? I'll make you a bowl of egg noodles. Behind him, Lia's response came noticeably lighter, even with a hint of coquettishness. Okay, Lin Chen was frying eggs, but his mind was racing. Should I give her a creation crystal now to see how it works? I already have 30 stored in my space, and I don't need them myself, so it's a waste to leave them. Lia sat on a high stool in the kitchen, her hands supporting her chin, her eyes sparkling as she watched his busy back. Judging from what you just said, it seems like you've seen me before. 4 days ago, on the flight from Japan back to Guangzhou, you were a flight attendant on that flight. Lin Chen answered casually, of course not mentioning the complicated entanglement from his past life. Ah, I remember now. She suddenly realized, her cheeks slightly flushed. On the plane, she had thought this sharp-eyed passenger was one of her many suitors. The two chatted idly. In his previous life, Lin Chen only had Zhao Kai and Li Qian by his side, two brothers who would stab him in the back without hesitation in the face of death. As for women, they were merely trading partners in the apocalypse, exchanging food or supplies for a brief night of warmth, cold and realistic. He suddenly realized a fact he had overlooked. In the apocalypse, while men were generally stronger and more decisive, they were also often more greedy, more ruthless, and more ambitious. Ambition was like the most deadly virus. Once infected, it was enough to make someone turn their knife against their own family. And women, They weren't without ruthlessness, but in most extreme situations, what they sought was often more about survival and protecting what they cherished, rather than grand ambitions like ruling the world. Perhaps, in this life, I really don't have to fight alone anymore. A thought quietly took root in his heart, and an elusive smile appeared on his face. I can assemble a special team, an all-female legion, with the creation crystals. They might be more loyal, more resilient, and have less internal attrition, and they are certainly pleasing to the eye. More importantly, the creation crystals are enough to guarantee that they awaken at least A-level abilities and are also powerful. As for the male members, he is not yet sure whether the loyalty boost brought by the creation crystals will be enough to restrain the unpredictable ambition and desire for control that arise from the powerful masculine instincts that accompany them. Chapter 10, Married a Rich Woman. Brother Lin? A slender hand waved in front of his eyes. Li Ya's voice filled with concern. What are you daydreaming about? The eggs are almost burnt. He snapped out of his reverie and placed a carefully prepared breakfast on the table. Fragrant egg noodles, crispy bacon, and slightly crunchy whole wheat toast. In the impending apocalypse, each of these would be a luxury item worthy of fierce competition. Leah ate with eyes that narrowed into crescent moons of happiness. This is so delicious. It tastes even better than the food in our airline's first class. Watching her eat with such unrefined yet vivid manners, Lin Chen's lips unconsciously curled into a slight smile. Want to gain superpowers too? Leah immediately put down her empty bowl and nodded vigorously with delight. Of course. I dream about it. Lin Chen smiled slightly, flipped his palm, and a crystal with a soft halo and a perfect hexagonal structure appeared out of thin air. This is called a creation crystal. Take it, and you'll have a high probability of awakening your own special ability. Leah carefully took it. It felt warm to the touch, and a shimmering light seemed to flow within the crystal. She was both nervous and expectant. Why suddenly give me this? Will there be any side effects? Don't worry, there won't be any danger to your life. Lin Chen's tone was calm and resolute, carrying an undeniable authority. Leah took a deep breath, no longer hesitating, and placed the creation crystal in her mouth. The moment the crystal touched her tongue, it melted rapidly as if it were alive, transforming into a warm and powerful current that instantly surged through her limbs and bones, permeating every cell. She subconsciously closed her eyes, her body trembling slightly, as if she could see countless tiny, shimmering energy particles coursing through her blood vessels and meridians. About a minute later, she suddenly opened her eyes, a faint white light flashing deep within her pupils. Almost instinctively, she raised her right hand, palm facing the thick sycamore tree at the edge of the courtyard outside the window, a tree so large it would take 2 people to encircle it. Whoosh! A pure white beam of light, condensed and perfectly sharp, shot silently from her palm, as fast as lightning, its trajectory perfectly straight. Boom, crack. The sycamore tree, at least 30 years old with deep roots, was cleanly severed from its base, close to the ground, by the white light. The heavy upper half of the trunk crashed down, slamming heavily onto the soft lawn with a dull thud, kicking up a cloud of dust and fallen leaves. The commotion was considerable. A sanitation worker sweeping the street nearby was so startled that her hand trembled, and her broom fell to the ground with a thud. She glanced in horror at the suddenly fallen giant tree and screamed, "Oh my God!" She turned and ran, not even bothering with the cleaning truck parked by the roadside. Several elderly men and women who were doing their morning exercise nearby gathered around upon hearing the commotion. Standing at what they considered a safe distance, they pointed and whispered amongst themselves, "Old Zhang, did you see that? That tree was perfectly fine. How could it just break like that?" "What do you mean it broke by itself? My eyesight is perfect. I just saw a white flash, whoosh, like a laser beam, and the tree fell down." "Was it struck by lightning? But the sky is perfectly clear." "Don't talk nonsense. I'm sure it was a leak in the underground natural gas pipeline that caused it to explode." "Nonsense. Can a natural gas explosion blast tree roots as clean as if they were cut with a knife? You try blasting one yourself." The crowd chattered, their guess is growing increasingly bizarre, yet no one dared to actually approach the strange, broken tree. This situation was simply beyond their comprehension. Inside the villa, Leah herself was startled, instinctively taking a half step back, covering her mouth with her hand, her eyes wide open. This is what I did?" She looked down at her seemingly unchanged palm, then looked up at the tragic broken piece of wood outside the window. The expression on her face quickly changed from initial shock to incredulous bewilderment, and finally, unbarely suppressed excitement mixed with shock and ecstasy burst forth from her eyes. Wow, so amazing! She turned sharply to look at Lin Chen, her voice trembling with excitement. I really have superpowers. Then, whether it was the influence of the creation crystal or the release of emotions from surviving a near-death experience, her cheeks flushed, and her eyes suddenly softened with dependence. Looking at Lin Chen, she softly called out, "Master." Lin Chen, carefully assessing her reaction, frowned slightly upon hearing this. "Don't call me that." "Oh." She playfully stuck out her tongue, readily complying and immediately changing her address, her voice sweet and soft. "I know, Brother Lin." He nodded slightly, secretly confirming to himself, the effects of the creation crystal were indeed profound. It didn't obliterate or manipulate the mind. It was more like a deep-seated imprint of identity and loyalty, instantly elevating the user's goodwill and trust to its peak. Li Ya's reaction at this moment, though influenced by the crystal, was clearly a natural expression of her true nature: surprise, joy, and dependence, layered and vividly real. However, the true strength of this brand's binding force, and whether it can withstand the test in extreme circumstances, requires further observation and experimentation. After breakfast, the two went to the third-floor terrace. This was the last warm sunshine before the apocalypse, which Lin Chen cherished. He had already transformed it into a sturdy observation deck. Thick bulletproof glass barriers were installed around the perimeter, and the top was a retractable reinforced canopy. Between two comfortable recliners, a pot of fragrant cold brewed oolong tea sat on a small table. "Xiaoya, how much cash do you have left?" Lin Chen suddenly asked, as if he had just thought of something. "Not much cash, but I have about 100 million in my current account, right?" "What's wrong, Brother Lin?" She blinked her big eyes and answered casually. Lin Chen was speechless for a moment. He had thought she chose to become a flight attendant for economic reasons or out of independence, but he hadn't expected that the interest on her savings alone would be enough to crush 99% of the world's strivers. His eyes lit up immediately, and he jumped up. "Let's go, order food. Contact every reputable high-end hotel, private kitchen, time-honored brand, and Michelin-starred restaurant in Guangzhou. We want as many top-notch dishes as they can make today, and they must be delivered here by 8 a.m. tomorrow at the latest. Money is no problem. If they're too busy, just double the price." With the apocalypse approaching, he didn't mind making good use of this last resource and indulging in a nice meal. The two immediately went into a frenzy of ordering. From delicate dim sum to luxurious Buddha jumps over the wall, from local delicacies to international flavors, they practically emptied the daily production capacity of all the major restaurants. Half an hour later, this usually quiet upscale villa area witnessed an unprecedented spectacle. Countless delivery riders in various uniforms and restaurant delivery vehicles poured in one after another. The security guard initially tried to stop them, but Li Yi made a phone call directly to the property manager. Upon hearing the name Mr. Li's Hongmeng's daughter, the manager's attitude immediately changed 180 degrees, and they were allowed to enter without any hindrance. Chapter 11 Blood Rain Descends. The two spent the entire afternoon receiving, inspecting, and storing each delicacy into their special ability space. This shopping spree continued until midnight. Li Yi was so exhausted that she collapsed onto the living room sofa and fell asleep. In the early hours of the morning, in the stillness of the night, Lin Chen sensed the familiar fluctuations emanating from the creation pearl in his sea of consciousness. S rank, extraordinary body, level 1, effect, basic physical attributes enhanced tenfold in all aspects. Simple, direct, and domineering. There was no exaggerated muscle expansion, no clothes bursting, just a profound and deep enhancement of pure power and endurance from within. It should be noted that ordinary F-rank body enhancement initially only increases by a maximum of 50%, and A-rank by a maximum of 5 times. What he received was a tenfold increase on top of the previous 5x amplification from his S-rank space ability. Feeling the surging power within him, Lin Chen nodded in satisfaction. Time to rest, to recharge for tomorrow's new world. He walked to the sofa and gently lifted the sleeping Li Yi into his arms. Her body was light, curled up, a faint, innocent fragrance lingering in her hair. Reaching the master bedroom, he carefully placed her on the soft bed. Just as he was about to turn and go to the guest room, a pair of slender arms suddenly encircled his neck. Li Yi had woken up some time earlier, her cheeks flushed, her large, watery eyes fixed on him. Her eyes held a complex mix of emotions, dependence, shyness, and a barely perceptible plea. Lin Chen, suppressing certain emotions for so long, was instantly stirred by that gaze, his breathing becoming heavy involuntarily. Since his rebirth, he had toiled day and night, his nerves taut, like a machine operating solely for survival. But he was not a saint, nor an ascetic. He was a man who had crawled back from mountains of corpses, seas of blood, betrayal, and despair. His bones harbored both a chilling killing intent and a burning, intense desire. Like dry tinder and raging fire, everything fell into place naturally. 2 hours later, Lin Chen held the exhausted Li Yi in his arms as they fell into deep sleep, finding warmth and comfort in each other on the last night before the apocalypse. The next morning, 8:30 a.m. Lin Chen stored the last batch of breakfast snacks delivered that morning into his special storage. Li Yi had also dressed and come out of her room, having changed into casual clothes that allowed for movement. Her face was still flushed, but her gaze towards him was even more intimate and trusting. He took out some still warm steamed buns and soy milk from his special storage, and the two quickly finished their breakfast in the dining room. 8:45 a.m. 15 minutes remained before the official outbreak of the apocalypse. Lin Chen was fully armed, a tactical vest, cut-resistant gloves, a military dagger at his waist, and a sniper rifle in his hand. He also handed Li Yi a set of relatively lightweight but equally complete protective gear and a short blade. The two went up to the third-floor terrace. Although Li Yi was surprised by the setup, she didn't ask any questions, but silently and quickly dressed herself and quietly stood beside Lin Chen. However, her hands were unconsciously clenching and unclenching, betraying her inner tension. She could clearly feel that Lin Chen beside her was completely different. His back was ramrod straight. His eyes were frighteningly calm, and his face showed a complex expression of both tension and anticipation. He was in an extremely excited state. "It's coming," he whispered, his voice not loud, but extremely excited, as if something good was about to happen. 9 o'clock sharp. The city was welcoming its most vibrant and bustling moment of the day. Office workers rushed to their buildings with coffee in hand, housewives discussed meat prices while carrying grocery baskets, students rode bicycles laughing and playing through the streets, elderly people practiced Tai Chi in the park to the sound of melodious music, and pet dogs frolicked on the lawn. The sun was shining brightly, the breeze was gentle, and everything seemed no different from any other day. Suddenly, the sky darkened without warning. It wasn't the gloom of gathering dark clouds, but a deeper, thicker, almost light-absorbing darkness that spread from the center of the sky outwards at an illogical speed. Birds scattered in panic, dogs barked uneasily, and the air seemed to freeze instantly, heavy and suffocating. Then, the rain began to fall. But it was no ordinary rain. It was scarlet. Thick, blood-red liquid with a faint, almost imperceptible stench of flesh. 1 drop, 2 drops, then a torrential downpour, slamming onto the asphalt, car roofs, and pedestrian shoulders. At first, pedestrians thought it was some cruel joke or accident. Some looked up at the sky, even laughing. Who's so heartless as to spill ketchup? However, the laughter turned into a piercing scream the next second. Anyone whose skin was touched by the scarlet raindrops would experience, within 5 minutes, eerily bulging and turning bluish-black blood vessels beneath their skin, their eyes rapidly becoming bloodshot and bulging, and a non-human, beast-like hoarse sound emanating from their throat. Within a mere 10 seconds, a living person would be completely transformed into a monster that knew only devouring and killing. It would roar and pounce on the nearest unmutated member of its kind, tearing and gnawing frantically with its teeth and nails. The streets instantly became a living hell. Cars crashed out of control, shards of glass flying everywhere. A mother carrying her young child fled, only to be tackled by her husband, who had just undergone his mutation, his sharp teeth deeply embedded in her delicate carotid artery. A convenience store clerk, just peeking out curiously, was pierced through the roller-shuttered door by a bluish-black claw, pinning him to the door frame. The blood rain fell faster and faster, denser and denser, as if a scarlet veil had been cast over the world. In the distance, the massive LED screen in the commercial center tirelessly looped a shampoo advertisement, a sweet female voice singing, smooth as ever, caring for every strand. Closer, a girl in a school uniform knelt in the middle of a blood-soaked road, cradling her best friend's mangled lower body, crying uncontrollably, only her desperate tears mingling with the blood. Under the awning of the villa's terrace, Lin Chen and Li Yi stood silently, watching the rapidly collapsing world before them. Li Yi's face was deathly pale, her body trembling uncontrollably, her nails digging deep into her palms, leaving crescent-shaped bloodstains. This isn't real, is it? Her voice was dry, like a dream. Zombies? The end of the world? Is everything over? Lin Chen reached out and tightly grasped her cold, trembling hand. His hands were warm and strong, but his voice was as calm as ice. No, the world is not over. He turned to her, his gaze piercing through the blood and gore, looking towards the chaotic and unknown future, a long-lost flame burning in his eyes, a flame powerful enough to consume everything. It's just, the era of the old humans has ended. Only now did Li fully understand what his incongruous attire and all his seemingly strange words and actions over the past 24 hours truly meant. Chapter 12 Terrifying Blood Rain. Brother Lin, did you know all along that this would happen? Li stood beside Lin Chen, her voice so soft it was almost drowned out by the screams and roars outside the window. Her face was deathly pale, her hands gripping the hem of her clothes tightly, her knuckles turning white from the force. Her eyes were fixed on the small square in the center of the villa area, where a chilling scene was unfolding. Just minutes before, an old woman who had been leisurely strolling with a cane was now twisted grotesquely, her eyes bulging and bloodshot, biting the neck of a cleaning lady who was trying to dodge. Blood gushed out like a fountain, staining the blooming roses in the nearby green belt a glaringly nauseating red. The cleaning lady only struggled and convulsed a few times, letting out a gurgling sound from her throat, before collapsing limply to the ground. However, the horror was not over. Less than a minute later, the seemingly lifeless body suddenly convulsed violently, its fingers digging unconsciously into the concrete floor, its nails splitting and turning upwards without its awareness. The next second, it scrambled to its feet with a scream far beyond human capabilities, its movements even faster and more ferocious than the zombie old woman. This transformation after being bitten was faster than being directly drenched in blood. What do you think? Lin Chen's lips curled into a very faint smile, his tone as calm as if discussing the rain outside the window. The anticipation and excitement in his eyes were gone, the blood rain had arrived as expected, and he had become much calmer. Li bit her bloodless lower lip, mustering her last bit of courage, and asked in a trembling voice, "Then, why didn't you tell everyone beforehand? If you had given a warning earlier, maybe, you could have saved a lot of people." How? Lin Chen chuckled lightly, without sarcasm, only a deep weariness born of experience and a profound understanding of the world. Do you think anyone would believe me if I ran out into the street or posted online, saying, "It'll rain blood at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and anyone who gets wet will turn into a zombie"? Their greatest act of kindness would probably be to send me to a mental hospital, or arrest me as a madman spreading panic. 10 minutes passed, and the two were still standing on the reinforced terrace, overlooking the once orderly upscale villa area below, which was rapidly collapsing into a chaotic mess. Just then, their phones vibrated rapidly at almost the same time. Li hurriedly looked down and opened the text message. After just one glance, the last trace of color drained from her face. This is an emergency announcement forcibly pushed to every mobile phone nationwide through the National Emergency Broadcasting System, Ministry of Emergency Management of China, highest level emergency announcement. 1. Abnormal blood rain has suddenly fallen across the country. Preliminary tests indicate that the rainwater contains a highly pathogenic and highly contagious unknown virus, tentatively named zombie virus. Contact with skin and mucous membranes can lead to rapid infection and mutation. 2. All citizens are urged to immediately seek safe indoor shelter from the rain, strictly close all doors and windows, and absolutely avoid going out. 3. Those who have been scratched or bitten by mutated individuals, tentatively called zombies, will experience an exponentially faster rate of infection. Uninfected individuals are urged to stay away. The nation is mobilizing all resources to deal with the disaster and restore order. Citizens are urged to remain calm, not to believe or spread rumors, and to stay home awaiting further notice and rescue. Lin Chen didn't even look down at the screen, he already knew what this announcement would say, he remembered every word. His cold gaze swept across the window, someone screamed in terror as they closed the last crack in the window. Someone was holding a kitchen knife and a baseball bat, desperately blocking their doorway. Several people, their bodies soaked to the bone by the blood rain, huddled in a corner of the stairwell, their eyes rapidly losing their light, becoming cloudy and empty. He turned to look at Li Yang, who was still trembling beside him, and softened his tone slightly. The apocalypse has only just begun. It's normal for you to have these thoughts. But you must remember, from now on, This world is no longer about reason or good and evil. Now is a time for life and death. With that, he turned without hesitation and strode towards the hidden pipe shaft next to the kitchen, forcefully tightening the main water valve with a click. The metal knob made a crisp locking sound, as if severing the last vestige of safety from the past. He then activated the backup pipes, connected to the modified water tank, turned on the tap, and flushed the pipes. What are you doing? Leah followed him in, her voice trembling uncontrollably. The blood rain has already fallen, Lin Chen said without turning his head, his voice steady. This means the entire city's water supply system has been contaminated. Every drop of water flowing from the tap now may be mixed with invisible viruses. Drinking a sip is like sentencing yourself to death. Leah stood there, stunned, her lips trembling. She seemed to want to refute, to find a glimmer of hope, but she couldn't utter a single word. The flight attendant who had been smiling brightly on the balcony yesterday, enjoying a delicious breakfast, seemed to have been completely blurred by this crimson downpour. At this moment, all that occupied her mind and body was boundless fear and bewilderment in the face of an unknown future. Then what should we do? She finally managed to squeeze out a sentence from her dry throat, her eyes uncontrollably reddening. Lin Chen straightened up, his gaze as steady as a rock, looking directly at her. Have you forgotten? You're no longer an ordinary person. You possess an A-level beam ability, your greatest asset for surviving in the new world. What you need to do is quickly familiarize yourself with it, master it, and strive to become stronger. Survival is the only goal. He opened his arms and gently embraced the icy cold Liam. His warm hands patted her back lightly. As for the supplies needed for survival, you don't need to worry at all. Forgot about the takeout we ordered yesterday? And I've also collected a huge amount of supplies from other places. This is enough for the two of us to live comfortably for decades, or even longer. Leah buried her face deeply in his firm, warm chest, her soft body still trembling slightly. Brother Lin, I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you from now on. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do. As a girl who grew up in a complicated family, caught between the halo of Li Bancheng and the shadow of being an illegitimate daughter, she understood a cruel truth earlier than anyone else. There is never any protection or security without a reason in this world. To gain something, one must pay the corresponding price. Moreover, under the influence of the mysterious power of the creation crystal, her loyalty, trust, and attachment to Lin Chen had already been deeply imprinted in the depths of her consciousness, almost instinctively. Chapter 13 The hunt begins. At this moment, the villa district outside the window had completely descended into the chaotic vortex of the impending apocalypse. In the distance, more and more swaying figures gathered on the streets, dragging their mangled limbs and dripping with thick, dark red blood, surging like waves towards every building in sight. The survivors fled in terror into their homes, frantically pulling up every curtain, barricades the doors with furniture and heavy objects, and praying desperately for a slim chance of miracle. Those unfortunate enough to be drenched in the blood rain faced an even more direct and cruel fate. Some only noticed the strange color of the rain and panicked at the horrific changes on the street before running home. They didn't know that what appeared to be merely oddly colored raindrops were actually a death knell tolling in advance. Often, they would barely reach their homes before they could even warn their families, before their bodies began to convulse violently, their pupils rapidly dilating to gray-white, transforming them from humans into monsters within 10 seconds. Then came the frenzied tearing and biting of their closest relatives. A blood-curdling scream, a carnage, an entire building, a single family, often vanishes within minutes, transformed into a death trap. Survivors, realizing the danger of the blood rain, their faces contorted with despair, frantically search between buildings like headless flies, seeking any seemingly safe place, underground shopping malls, subway tunnels, underground parking garages, daring not to return to their own homes. Many drivers habitually flick cigarette ash out of their windows while waiting at red lights or moving slowly. Unaware that their fingertips are accidentally stained with the falling blood rain, the sudden transformation of the zombies in the driver's seat causes the vehicle to lose control. This triggers a series of horrific chain reaction collisions, paralyzing city traffic in a very short time. Worse still, many citizens, drawn by the sudden commotion, screams, and strange phenomena outside their windows, open their windows out of curiosity or fear, even venturing out of their homes to investigate. The moment they peek out, the blood rain falls on their hair, cheeks, and collars. Even a few insignificant drops are enough to trigger irreversible and terrifying mutations within an hour or even less. What's most suffocating and despairing is that, according to Lin Chen's memories from his previous life, this blood-red rain of utter destruction will last for 3 whole days, day and night. The scenes from his previous life are still vivid in his mind. Someone had specifically conducted statistics, even if the blood rain falls at 9 a.m., when most city residents have already entered the relatively safe period of relatively enclosed office buildings or factories. Within these initial 3 days alone, more than 75% of humanity worldwide will still be transformed due to direct contact with a blood rain or being bitten or scratched by zombies. If it weren't for the later survivors paying a heavy price to raise awareness and drastically reduce all unnecessary outings, the mortality rate of humanity would likely approach an even more terrifying figure. The initial zombies are only about 30% stronger than an average adult male, and their movement speed is not fast, but they have no pain, are tireless, and never retreat. They also carry highly toxic substances. Only by completely destroying their brainstem or severely damaging their heads can they be stopped. For ordinary people who are untrained and lack effective weapons, engaging in close combat with them is almost tantamount to suicide. Faced with a rapidly spreading chaos and approaching threat outside the window, Lin Chen's eyes showed no panic, only calm. He led Li Yang, who was following closely behind, to the sturdy entrance door on the first floor. With a slight thought, he took out dozens of heavy supermarket metal shelves and thick construction barriers from his special storage, swiftly blocking the villa entrance. Then, he brought out a huge, incredibly powerful outdoor portable speaker, plugged it into a high-capacity power supply he had prepared beforehand, and pressed play without hesitation. Boom! A deafeningly loud, dynamic music instantly exploded, the highly penetrating rhythm and melody wildly impacting the air. "You are my little apple, I can never love you enough." The deep, powerful sound of the subwoofer made the bulletproof French windows hum slightly. "Brother Lin. What are you doing?" Leah was startled by the sudden loud noise, instinctively covering her ears and looking at Lin Chen in terror. The visual system of zombies deteriorates severely in the early stages, almost equivalent to being half-blind, Lin Chen calmly explained. But their hearing becomes exceptionally acute, especially responsive to continuous, rhythmic sounds. As he spoke, he raised the Barrett M82A1 sniper rifle in his hand. The heavy barrel was as black as ink, exuding a chilling killing intent. "What I'm going to do is lure all the zombies in this area that can be attracted by sound, all of them, right under our noses." Sure enough, less than 10 seconds after the violent music started playing, as if receiving a rallying call, from the corner of the alley, the green lawn, the shadows of the garage exit, one after another, hunched figures with contorted postures and unsteady steps began to sway and accelerate, converging on the villa playing Little Apple. They emitted low, guttural growls, their dark eyes darting towards the source of the sound. Lin Chen knelt on one knee, set up his sniper rifle, squinted his left eye, and aimed his right at the scope. His breathing became long and steady, his heartbeat seemingly synchronized with the trigger's rhythm. Bang! The first shot, a thunderous roar. The bullet precisely pierced the eye socket of the leading zombie. Its entire skull exploded like a watermelon, splattering grayish-white fluid and bone fragments everywhere. The corpse collapsed to the ground. Bang! 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 The second shot, the third shot, gunshots rang out in succession. Each muffled, massive bang signified that a ferocious zombie had ceased its activity forever, becoming one of the corpses piled up in front of the door. In a short time, all 35 zombies that had been attracted were killed, their mutilated bodies forming a bloody and eerie barrier in front of the villa. The first wave of attracted zombies had been completely annihilated. Lin Chen put down his sniper rifle, donned thick rubber gloves, grabbed a sharp military dagger, and expressionlessly walked towards the pile of zombie corpses outside the door, reeking of blood and decay. He deftly selected one, the dagger precisely plunging into its temple. With a twist of his wrist, he easily split open the skull, his fingers carelessly probing into the viscous, festering brain tissue. A moment later, he steadily extracted a crystal, about the size of a little fingernail, gleaming with a milky white light. Its texture was crystal clear, with subtle shimmering light flowing within. It was a first-tier zombie crystal core. Chapter 14 Training Li Yang. Lin Chen took out a bottle of mineral water and carefully rinsed away the blood and tissue fluid from the crystal surface. Without hesitation, he tossed it into the primordial creation pearl in his sea of consciousness. His consciousness sank into that mysterious space. The crystal core, upon entering, automatically drifted towards the creation tree shrouded in purple aura at its center. As soon as it approached the tree's roots, the crystal silently dissolved, transforming into a wisp of extremely pure, milky white energy, which was quickly absorbed by the creation tree's roots, as if it had never existed. It really works. A hint of understanding and joy flashed in Lin Chen's eyes. The unknown energy contained in the zombie crystal core is precisely the high-energy substance needed by the creation pearl, or rather, the creation tree. He speculated, then, the crystal cores produced within mutated beasts will most likely be equally effective. Immediately afterward, he began his second experiment. With a thought, he directly stored a relatively intact zombie corpse into the creation pearl space. A strange sight unfolded. Beneath the still-standing creation tree, several fine, almost imperceptible pale purple roots silently emerged. Like living serpents, they burrowed into the slightly open mouth and nose of the zombie corpse. After about 5 seconds, the roots quietly retracted, as if they had never been there at all. Lin Chen then retrieved the corpse from his spatial storage and skillfully pried open its skull with his dagger to examine it. Sure enough, the brain cavity was empty. The crystal core that should have been there had vanished without a trace. Interesting, Lin Chen muttered to himself, a hint of amusement flashing in his eyes. The creation tree's goal is very clear. It only absorbs the core energy from the crystal core, showing no interest in the corpse itself. This saves trouble. In the future, when collecting energy, even the skull opening and core extraction step can be omitted. He then began his third experiment, one crucial to him. He wanted to know if, having already fused with a creation bead, he could still forcibly enhance his personal strength by directly consuming zombie crystal cores, even surpassing the current level limited by the creation bead. With this question in mind, he continued his work, dissecting the heads of over a dozen zombies. He extracted the crystal cores, washed them clean, and then swallowed them one after another without hesitation, like candy. After 15 crystal cores, he focused his mind, carefully sensing every change within his body. However, his physical strength showed no increase, and the supernatural power in his sea of consciousness remained completely still, without even a trace of warmth or unusual sensation. He couldn't help but smile bitterly to himself. Humans, indeed, are creatures that won't turn back until they hit a wall. Even with a treasure like the creation pearl, they still think of taking a shortcut. But this result was within his expectations. The level of the creation pearl truly limited his independent growth. Helpless, he had to abandon this idea, storing all the remaining zombie corpses into the creation pearl's space, considering it an extra meal for the creation tree. After sensing that the creation tree had absorbed all the crystal core energy, he threw these now worthless empty corpses back into the space, piling them up in front of the villa. Li Yan had been standing in the shadows inside the villa, witnessing Lin Chen's series of actions, a series of actions so calm they were almost cruel. From the precise headshot to the expressionless dissection and core extraction, to the seemingly magical manipulation of the corpse, all of this completely shattered the cognitive framework she had built up over the past 22 years. It wasn't until Lin Chen calmly called her name that she snapped out of her shock, her stomach churning violently, a wave of nausea rising in her throat. She covered her mouth, turned, and rushed into the nearest bathroom, retching violently into the toilet, almost bringing up bile. Lin Chen said nothing, nor did he urge her. He understood this reaction. After all, facing such a bloody, irrational scene for the first time would elicit an instinctive resistance and physical discomfort from anyone with a sound mind. Adaptation takes time. Just then, the outdoor speaker continued to blare the deafening Little Apple tirelessly. The blaring music, like a beacon in the night, once again attracted the wandering figures from all over the neighborhood. A dozen or so zombies staggered out from different corners, gathering unsteadily towards the source of the sound, some still wearing the dark blue uniforms of security guards, their name tags still on. Others were only dressed in wrinkled pajamas and slippers, clearly having fled their homes in a panic or mutated. There were also several cleaning ladies in orange work uniforms, and a few delivery riders carrying insulated boxes, their helmets askew. Their eyes were vacant, their movements stiff, and their skin bore traces of dark red blood. Even more chilling were the fresh, raw claw marks and bite wounds on many of them, ironclad evidence of transformation after being attacked by other zombies. Lin Chen stood again before the reinforced gate of the villa, his Barrett rifle once more at rest. His eyes were sharp, his breathing steady, and the rhythm of his trigger pulls extremely stable. Bang! 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 Each bullet pierced precisely between the eyebrows of a zombie, sending up puffs of dark red blood mist. His movements were swift and decisive, without the slightest hesitation. Lia's face was ashen. She splashed cold water on her face several times, forcing herself to calm down, and return to the doorway. Lin Chen didn't turn around, but simply gestured towards the corpse, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Go, dig out the crystal core. The apocalypse had arrived, and the cruel laws of survival were in effect. Everyone, regardless of their previous identity, had to adapt to this new world as quickly as possible. Those who couldn't adapt to the bloodshed, the killing, or facing death were destined to be eliminated immediately. Lia gritted her teeth, suppressing the nausea rising in her throat again, and gripped the dagger Lin Chen had handed her. She walked to a relatively intact zombie corpse not far behind him. Her hand trembled as she mimicked Lin Chen's movements, pressing the tip of the dagger against the zombie's temple, but hesitated to plunge it in. If you want to survive in the apocalypse, the only way is to consume the crystal core in their brains and continuously grow stronger. Lin Chen's cold voice came from ahead, offering no comfort, only a statement. These words struck like a heavy hammer. Lia closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she opened them again, a ruthless glint appeared in them. She plunged the dagger in. However, as the blade sliced through the skull and her fingers touched the warm, sticky, foul-smelling brain tissue, a strong physiological reaction struck again. She dropped the dagger and rushed to the bathroom once more. She repeated this 3 times. When she returned for the 4th time, her face a mixture of sweat, tears, and splattered blood, her movements finally stopped trembling. She gritted her teeth and almost brutally dissected the head of a zombie, her fingers groping in the nauseating slime until finally, her fingertips touched a hard, warm object. She forcefully pried it out. A crystal core, stained with blood but emitting a faint white glow, lay quietly in her filthy palm. Meanwhile, Lin Chen had dragged the corpses of the dozen or so newly killed zombies to her feet. With each action, the fear on Lia's face was gradually replaced by a numbness. Faced with rotting corpses and foul-smelling brains, her hands no longer trembled, and the angle of her knife became increasingly precise and stable. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15: Lia's Rapid Growth. Occasionally, in a brief lull, Lia would pull out her phone with trembling hands. Social media was already flooded with panic, real footage. Someone's gone mad at Tuanrong shopping mall in the city center, biting anyone in sight. The police came and fired shots, but they didn't stop. Urgent help needed. Waiting online. My girlfriend just got caught in the rain, and now her nails are black and sharp, her eyes are completely black, and she doesn't recognize me at all. What should I do? Video. Our whole building is screaming. Old Wang next door got bitten, and he started biting his wife in less than a minute. If I end up like that too, please kill me. Don't let me hurt Xiaobao. The accompanying picture is a heartwarming family photo of the 3 of us. This post on her WeChat moments was forever frozen at 10:17 a.m. today. Countless cries for help, breakdowns, and farewells washed over her like a tidal wave. At this moment, she finally realized with absolute clarity, the familiar, orderly world outside had completely collapsed. Chaos and death were the only themes now. If she wanted to survive, if she didn't want to become a monster or be torn apart by a monster, she had to adapt to everything before her as quickly as possible. Thinking this, the confusion in her eyes gradually faded, replaced by an almost cold determination born of a will to survive. Adaptability, not bad. Lin Chen observed her change out of the corner of his eye, secretly approving. It wasn't that he was inherently cold-hearted, but this newly arrived apocalypse was 1,000 times crueler than any individual. It would eliminate those who were weak-willed, harbored naive fantasies, or couldn't face the stark reality in the most direct and bloody way. He wanted Lia to survive. Not just because she was now his woman. More importantly, because he saw a precious resilience in her. In this new world where order had completely collapsed, he didn't need a burden who only knew how to cry, nor did he need a saintly person who dragged down the entire team with foolish kindness or impulsiveness. Only someone like Lia, who could quickly adjust her mindset after a huge shock, force herself to face bloodshed and death, and was willing to learn and change, truly deserved to live in this hell, and was worthy of his resources and being kept by his side. About an hour later, the area around the villa finally returned to deathly silence. The deafening music had long since been turned off by Lin Chen, only faint screams and crashes could be heard in the distance. Lin Chen took the last crystal core Li Yat had dug out from her hand and tallied the total spoils. In this battle, including the first wave, they had obtained a total of 33 level 1 zombie crystal cores. He took out 25 of them, held them in his palm, and handed them to Liya, giving a concise and clear command: eat them. Liya looked at the pile of crystals that emitted a faint glow yet seemed to carry a bloody scent, a flicker of instinctive apprehension and resistance in her eyes. She had witnessed Lin Chen swallow them without any reaction and knew she couldn't disobey any of his commands. Finally, she closed her eyes, grabbed the crystal cores, and, as if swallowing bitter medicine, shoved them into her mouth, swallowing them with difficulty. Lin Chen waited quietly to the side. He wanted to verify two hypotheses. First, could Li Yan, whose abilities had been awakened through the creation crystal, increase her ability level by consuming zombie crystal cores, and even, theoretically, surpass himself, who is limited by the creation bead? Second, and more crucially, how strong was the loyalty restriction granted by the creation crystal? Would it be shaken or broken by the increased power? The moment the energy of the 25th crystal core accumulated, transformed, and finally triggered a qualitative change within her body, Li Ya's body jolted violently. She abruptly opened her eyes, a brighter white halo flashing in her pupils. She could clearly feel that the beam ability within her body had become more condensed. At the same time, her entire body seemed to be injected with new vitality. Her strength, speed, and endurance all significantly improved. Overwhelmed by immense joy, she almost jumped up, instinctively rushing towards Lin Chen. "Brother Lin, I feel it. My superpower has upgraded. My body has become stronger too." "Very good." Lin Chen nodded, his tone calm. However, the next second, his tone suddenly changed, his voice icy and devoid of any emotion, like a judgment from hell. "Then, commit suicide now." Liya froze abruptly, the strength in her arms loosening instantly. She looked up in disbelief at Lin Chen's face, so close yet suddenly so unfamiliar. Why? He had just helped her become stronger. Why did he want her to die in the blink of an eye? A huge sense of absurdity and grievance welled up in her heart. However, what terrified her even more was that, despite her inner turmoil of confusion, sadness, and resistance, her body, her will, seemed to be locked tightly by an invisible, absolutely irreversible shackle. She couldn't even muster the slightest thought of resistance or questioning. It was as if Lin Chen's words were the highest truth she had to follow. Tears uncontrollably streamed down her stained cheeks. Torn between extreme grief and absolute obedience, she was like a soulless puppet. Trembling, she slowly raised the dagger she had just used to extract the crystal core, still smeared with brain matter. The cold blade pressed against her slender, fragile neck. Just as the tip was about to pierce her skin and draw a bead of blood, a steady, strong hand flashed out and snatched the dagger away. Liya looked up blankly through her tearful eyes, only to see Lin Chen's lips slightly curved in a smile. The coldness in his eyes vanished, replaced by an elusive, almost relieved smile. "All right, the test is over." "Just kidding." He gently pulled the stiff Liya into his arms, his hand softly patting her back, which trembled slightly from the lingering fear. He soothed her softly. "Don't be afraid, it's all right. How could I really let you die?" Liya's tense nerves suddenly relaxed. The exhaustion of surviving the ordeal and the immense grievance surged up together, making her unable to help but sob softly in his arms. But she quickly smiled through her tears and hugged him even tighter. In her chaotic perception at this moment, Lin Chen was the sky above her, sometimes stormy, sometimes sunny. He was the only existence she could and had to rely on in this collapsing apocalypse. She could not disobey any of his orders. This absolute sense of belonging even gave her a twisted sense of security and stability amidst her fear. At this moment, however, Lin Chen's heart was churning with a storm far more violent than the apocalyptic scene outside the window. The effect of the creation crystal was far more terrifying than he had even the boldest expectations. He had originally thought that it would at most greatly increase favorability and obedience, similar to powerful loyalty mark. However, the experiment just now ruthlessly revealed a fact. Even when Liya's ability level had just been upgraded, theoretically approaching or even temporarily surpassing his current ability level limited by the creation bead. His extreme command of suicide, which completely violated the biological survival instinct, was still executed without fail. Moreover, Li Ye remained emotionally intact and conscious throughout the process, experiencing all fear and sorrow, yet unable to even entertain the thought of disobeying. No wonder it's called a cosmic treasure. He secretly gasped, marveling, this kind of coercive control that penetrates deep into the soul's origin, almost to the level of rules, it's simply heaven-defying. This was not merely a powerful control tool, it meant that his envisioned women's army plan had a terrifyingly solid core guarantee. As long as the supply of creation crystals remained uninterrupted, loyalty would no longer be a variable to worry about. Chapter 16 Leaving the Villa, Taking the Initiative. Lin Chen then threw the remaining 8 crystal cores into the creation pearl. The moment the crystal cores entered that mysterious space, they shrank and melted rapidly, like ice and snow meeting the blazing sun, vanishing completely in less than 10 seconds, leaving not a trace. They absorbed so quickly. Lin Chen muttered to himself, a hint of surprise flashing in his eyes. Even more strangely, an incredibly clear hunger arising from their soul connection directly entered his mind, not a sound or language, but a pure, almost instinctive thirst. It was as if the creation pearl itself had developed a hazy consciousness, urgently demanding more and more abundant energy. It seems the creation pearl does indeed possess sentience, it craves growth. Lin Chen's eyes flickered thoughtfully. However, this consciousness is still very weak, barely able to condense a complete thought. Since the crystal cores are effective for it, I can't stop. He dared not waste time. The area around the villa had been temporarily cleared. To obtain more crystal cores, he had to take the initiative. Come on, let's go hunt zombies. He turned to Li Ye, his tone calm but unwavering. Li Ye nodded almost without hesitation, replying, okay. Wherever you go, Brother Lin, I'll go. A hint of nervousness lingered in her voice, but compared to the girl who vomited to the point of exhaustion at the sight of corpses just hours before, her eyes now held a newfound determination and composure. Under the influence of her second-tier ability, her basic physical attributes had been enhanced at least 6-fold. Her strength had indeed leaped forward, but true combat prowess needed to be honed and proven in constant real-world battles. All right. Lin Chen nodded, taking out 2 thick raincoats from his special storage. Although they possessed superpowers and were no longer afraid of the zombie virus contained in the blood rain, neither wanted to fight in the damp, sticky conditions, as it would severely impair their movement and judgment. The 2 quickly donned their raincoats, checked their equipment, and locked the heavily reinforced door of the villa. His figure vanished into the gray, blood-tinged sky, steadily making his way out of the residential area. The villa district already had a low population density, and after Lin Chen had cleared out 2 waves of zombies, the number of roaming zombies in the area was now negligible. Lin Chen had even deliberately left a few behind, acting as temporary watchdogs, to prevent other survivors from prematurely considering this place a completely safe haven. He stepped out of the residential area and onto the street. The once bustling street was now deserted, eerily silent. Only the shattered neon signs were reflected in the puddles along the roadside, distorted and eerie. A few scattered zombies lingered at alley entrances or under shop eaves, mostly residents in their pajamas or property management staff who hadn't had time to change out of their uniforms, their movement stiff and their reaction sluggish. Lin Chen raised his hand, either precisely firing a silenced pistol or cleanly stabbing a dagger through the temple, eliminating them silently. He temporarily stored the corpse in his special ability space. He needed an absolutely safe and private environment to study in depth the laws and upgrade conditions of the creation pearl's energy absorption. Taking it out now to feed it was clearly inappropriate. The closer they got to the main road, the more horrifying the scene became. Several cars were wrecked at various twisted angles, the drivers, already mutated and still screaming and scratching in vain from their seatbelts. Roadside food stalls were overturned, milk teacups and packaging bags scattered all over the ground, soaking in rainwater mixed with blood. A child's backpack with a cartoon pattern hung forlornly on a lamppost not far away, the zipper half open, revealing half of a childishly colored crayon drawing. The drawing depicted 3 little people holding hands, with the words Baba, Mama Hey written crookedly in pinyin next to it. Li pursed her lips, forcing herself to look away, but her steps did not stop, resolutely following behind Lin Chen. Half an hour later, the 2 arrived at the largest commercial complex in the vicinity, Shanghai Xiandi. In the distance, several inflatable arches bearing signs like Welcome Special and End of Season Clearance could be seen swaying weakly and collapsing in the wind and rain. It seemed that some businesses were taking advantage of the back-to-school season to launch promotions, unexpectedly attracting a large crowd to shop. At this moment, the plaza surrounding the mall was teeming with zombies, numbering at least several hundred. They wandered aimlessly, including uniformed security guards, students with backpacks, and staff with name tags around their necks. But most were ordinary citizens shopping. Through the shattered glass walls, they could see even more staggering figures moving slowly inside the mall, on the escalators, in the atrium, and in the food courts. Densely populated areas are indeed the first to become disaster zones, Lin Chen said in a low voice, taking out a sniper rifle silencer from his special storage and attaching it. He then handed Li Ye an assault rifle also fitted with a silencer for training. He quickly explained the basic grip, aiming techniques, trigger control, and magazine-changing methods. While close combat is more efficient and direct, zombies have exceptionally keen hearing. Alerting a large horde could easily lead to a passive and surrounded situation. He knew he was only at Tier 1, and with his current strength level, he wasn't yet capable of ignoring numbers and directly confronting a zombie horde. He had to hold his ground until at least Tier 2 before taking risks. The two chose a sniping spot and stealthily moved to the rooftop of a low-rise building opposite the mall. The view was excellent, and Tier 1 zombies couldn't climb it, making it a perfect firing position. Lin Chen set up his sniper rifle, while Li Ye, behind him, held her breath, trying to adjust to the weight and feel of the weapon. Bang! A zombie lurking at the edge of the plaza fell to the ground, a blood blooming between its brows. Bang! Li Ye pulled the trigger. The recoil made her shoulder jolt slightly, but the bullet grazed the target's shoulder and struck a pillar behind them. The zombie suddenly turned its head, its gray-white eyes seemingly locking onto their direction, and roared as it charged towards the low building. Lin Chen's eyes narrowed slightly, and with a flick of his wrist, bang, he fired again, accurately blowing the charging zombie's head off. Without turning his head, he imparted his experience: don't panic, control your breathing, treat it like a moving target. Keep going. For the next 2 hours, this place became Li Ye's training ground. Lin Chen picked off lone zombies in the square while training Li Ye's marksmanship. When more zombies gathered, he instructed Li Ye to use her beam ability to attack. The condensed white beam was incredibly powerful, often piercing through the heads of several zombies at once, greatly increasing the efficiency of clearing them out. Chapter 17 Hunting in the Rain. Li Ye initially missed frequently, her heart pounding. But with the extraordinary physical enhancement brought by her superpower, and with Lin Chen's constant guidance, she gradually steadied her breathing and trembling wrists, and her shooting accuracy slowly improved to about 50%. When using her superpower, she also gradually became more conscious of controlling the amount of energy output and the angle of attack, instead of the initial chaotic scattering. When the last zombie in the square finally fell, it was almost 2 p.m. The continuous high-intensity shooting and the consumption of superpower energy left both of them feeling noticeably tired and hungry. They moved the battlefield to the square. Lin Chen quickly cleared the zombie corpses, while Li Ye took charge of guarding. All the corpses were temporarily stored in their superpower space, and the extraction of the crystal cores would be postponed until it was safe to do so. After clearing the area, the two retreated to a milk tea shop that was already empty and whose locks had been broken to rest briefly. Lin Chen took out compressed biscuits, beef jerky, and milk from his space. The two leaned back against a booth, quickly swallowing the food, but their eyes remained warily fixed on the glass door outside. The blood-red rain showed no sign of abating. Large raindrops pounded against the plastic awnings of the shops, making a dense, muffled plop sound. They gathered into streams, meandering down the drainage channels, finally dripping onto the already crimson ground of the square. The scarlet rain seemed to possess a life of its own, spreading rapidly, greedily devouring the gray-white paving stones, turning the entire wide road into a scarlet carpet. This intensely suffocating color seeped into every crack in the bricks, overflowing the messy tire tracks and shoe prints, carrying away lost cell phones, broken high heels, scattered flyers, making one's heart clench and a chill run down one's spine. Li Ye took a sip of milk. The warm liquid briefly soothed her stomach, but did nothing to dispel the ever-spreading chill in her heart. She suddenly spoke in a low voice, somewhat hoarse, "Brother Lin, why haven't we seen any police or heard any movement from the army yet? Is there still hope outside?" Are they organizing a rescue? Lin Chen did not answer immediately. He looked at her quietly, his gaze calm and serene, yet seemingly able to pierce through all illusory hopes. Our country's soldiers train daily even in peacetime, always ready for war. The city's police patrol the streets and alleys every day, handling all sorts of incidents. Think about it, when that blood rain suddenly fell without warning, who would be the first to be exposed to the open, with no time or place to hide? Li Ya's hand, gripping the milk carton, trembled violently. The edge of the carton was unconsciously crushed, and a few drops of milky white liquid splashed onto her trouser leg, quickly forming a small wet patch. She instantly understood, a chill running from her feet to her head. Those who were first to stand on the streets directing traffic, guarding important posts, and rushing into the chaotic crowds to try and maintain order, were those in uniform. If even they couldn't escape, and even if a large number of them became those wandering monsters outside, then the so-called organized rescue might have been nothing more than a pale and powerless hope born of despair from the very beginning. The last glimmer of hope for the possible return of the old order shattered silently and completely in her heart, like fragile glass. Peace was truly over. The apocalypse had truly arrived. She felt a tightness in her chest, as if an invisible, cold hand was gripping her heart tightly, tightening until she could barely breathe. Lin Chen's gaze, however, passed through the vast rain curtain, landing on the distant horizon, the blurry outline of Yangcheng University City. He remembered clearly, in his previous life, in that very area, a petty thug who had been roaming the streets had miraculously survived the bloodbath. Far from turning into a zombie, he became one of the first lucky ones to awaken his supernatural abilities. After awakening, his personality changed drastically, or perhaps the apocalypse revealed his true nature. His methods were extremely ruthless. He quickly used the art academy as a base, coercing a large number of students and plundering surrounding resources. In just half a month, he had gathered a brutal thug force, dominating the entire University City area and causing countless tragedies. In this life, I've also chosen this place as my base. He thought coldly to himself, if that guy is still lucky enough to survive and awaken, then let's see if he'll live to see the day he reigns supreme. That person must be kept a close eye on, even eliminated first. He didn't want to plant a brutal and insane time bomb near his carefully crafted university town stronghold, disrupting the entire plan. The two quickly finished their beef jerky and milk. The food was simple, but enough to replenish the energy consumed in the intense battle. They rested for less than 20 minutes on the cold sofa in the milk tea shop before Lin Chen stood up first. Let's go. His voice was deep, but undeniably firm. Li Yi immediately got up and followed, her eyes no longer showing the initial panic, but instead a determination forged by the pressure of survival. Her adaptation and growth rate were indeed far beyond that of ordinary people. Their goal was clear, to thoroughly clear the interior of the Shanghai Xiandi shopping mall and remove all usable supplies. Although Lin Chen's ability space was already filled with strategic reserves worth trillions. But in this apocalyptic world where resources are rapidly dwindling, supplies, especially daily necessities, are never too abundant. They are both a guarantee of survival and the hard currency for building power in the future. Donning their heavy raincoats again, the two stepped back into the mall's main entrance. The first floor lobby was a mess: overturned information desks, shattered glass cosmetics display cases, scattered high heels, jewelry, and broken packaging boxes. Several zombie corpses lay across the smooth marble floor in the center, bullet holes in their foreheads testifying to Lin Chen's earlier precise long-range sniping. The two removed their raincoats at the entrance and began a systematic clearing of the interior. Putting away his sniper rifle, Lin Chen led the way with a silenced pistol, Li Yi following closely behind, her eyes scanning every corner warily. They first went down to the large supermarket on the B1 level. The space was open, with numerous shelves, but danger lurked within. Lin Chen quickly cleared out the few zombies wandering near the fresh produce section to ensure safety. His gaze then fell upon the mountains of supplies, boxes of canned goods, walls of instant noodles, trays of bottled water, and various daily necessities such as toilet paper and toothpaste. With a slight thought, Lin Chen conjured up rows of metal shelves that, along with the goods, vanished into thin air, leaving the floor instantly empty. Next came the refrigerated display cases in the fresh produce section, the storage room, and a small cold storage room. He took everything, uncontaminated and still usable, regardless of type. Chapter 18 Twin Sisters. Deep inside the supermarket, A dozen survivors, hiding behind shelves or in the staff break room, stared in disbelief through the gaps. Most were elderly people who had come to buy groceries that morning, and some store employees who hadn't managed to escape. Lin Chen didn't even glance in their direction, continuing his collecting work. His movements were so meticulous that he even swept several unopened boxes of family planning supplies from the corner of the shelf into his storage space. Leah caught sight of the pile of brightly colored boxes, her ears instantly burning red. Her eyes darted away, and she muttered under her breath, do we really need this kind of thing? Lin Chen remained unfazed, his voice calm and even. In the apocalypse, despair and pain are the norm. For some, temporary numbness is one of the motivations to survive. Moreover, these kinds of items, at certain times, can truly be life-saving resources for women. Leah paused, then bit her lower lip and silently nodded. She finally understood more deeply that in Lin Chen's eyes, there was no longer any worldly shame or morality to bind them, only cold practical value and survival probability remained. Returning to the first floor, they began to advance floor by floor. International brand cosmetics counters? Take them. Those bottles and jars might be used for trading in extreme environments, or to maintain basic facial cleanliness. Gold and jewelry counters? Lin Chen used a dagger to pry open the reinforced glass cover, taking all the gold bars, necklaces, bracelets, diamond rings, and other precious metals and gems into his space. Some women, even in the apocalypse, were still willing to exchange resources for these things. Reaching the second floor, this floor was a vast clothing area. Men's wear, women's wear, children's wear, underwear, sportswear. Deep inside a high-end children's wear store on the second floor, they discovered something unusual. Leah keenly heard a faint, suppressed sob coming from the storage room. Lin Chen signaled her to be alert, then silently approached and abruptly pulled open the storage room door. A middle-aged woman, adorned with jewels and dressed in an expensive suit, huddled in a corner. Upon seeing a living person, especially Lin Chen wielding a weapon, she lunged at him like a drowning man grasping at a straw, trying to grab his arm. Lin Chen reacted swiftly, raising his gun and pressing it against her forehead, forcing her to stagger backward and fall to the ground. Save me. Please save me. I'll give you money. I have a lot of money. My husband is the general manager of company, he's very powerful. If you save me, he'll definitely reward you handsomely, she pleaded incoherently, even kowtowing, her voice hoarse and desperate. Leah looked at Lin Chen, her gaze complex, but remained silent. Lin Chen's eyes instantly locked onto the side of her neck, a fresh, gruesome claw mark, the edges already showing an ominous black. Even more chilling was the sight of thin strands of black rapidly spreading and eroding the whites of her eyes deep within them. He gestured for Leah to pay attention. When Leah saw the wounds and the changes in the woman's eyes, her heart tightened, and she instantly understood, this woman was beyond saving, turning into a zombie was only a matter of time, and could happen in the next second. Lin Chen no longer hesitated. Just then, the woman's body began to convulse uncontrollably. And inhuman screams emanated from her throat. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as a bullet accurately pierced her skull. Lin Chen quickly stepped forward, stored the corpse in his special storage, and then collected the spare clothes and supplies from the storage room. The two continued walking in silence, the atmosphere even more tense because of the earlier incident. Soon, they arrived at the Chanel boutique. The store was equally chaotic. Mannequins were scattered about, expensive perfume bottles were shattered, and the scent of perfume mingled with the stench of blood. 3 zombies dressed in store clerk uniforms lay near the cashier, all shot in the head, the ones Lin Chen had cleared earlier. Leah's eyes lit up. The limited edition handbags, exquisite ready-to-wear clothes, and haute couture gowns in the store still held considerable appeal for her. She was about to step inside when Lin Chen blocked her way. His gaze, sharp as lightning, swept across every corner of the store, finally settling on the innermost row of fitting rooms, concealed by heavy velvet curtains. He gestured to Li Yan. Having just experienced the children's clothing store, Li Yan instantly understood, there might be something hidden inside, and it might not even be a living person. She immediately held her breath, moved stealthily, and crouched low to the door of the outermost fitting room, her back pressed against the cold wall. Lin Chen, meanwhile, steadily aimed his gun at the direction the curtain was open, his eyes cold and icy. Leah took a deep breath, suddenly reached out, and with a whoosh, ripped open the heavy curtain, simultaneously dodging to the side and behind to avoid a possible attack. However, the expected pounce or scream did not occur, and Lin Chen's gun did not fire. Lin Chen frowned, cautiously approaching with his gun. Leah, hearing no movement, turned around in confusion to look inside the fitting room. In the cramped corner of the fitting room, two figures huddled together, trembling. They were wrapped from head to toe in several expensive silk dresses and cashmere shawls, like two fledgling birds huddled together after being frightened in a blizzard, almost blending into the pile of clothes in the corner. As if sensing the curtain being drawn back and not hearing any movement from the zombies, the trembling of the two clothes paused slightly. Then, one of them carefully and extremely slowly lifted a corner of the skirt covering her face, revealing a pair of almond-shaped eyes brimming with tears and filled with terror. Immediately afterward, the other did the same. Two almost identical faces emerged from the clothing. Porcelain white, delicate skin, drained of color by fear, delicate noses, and beautifully curved lips trembling slightly. Most captivating were their eyes, large and bright, with slightly upturned corners. At this moment, they resembled startled fawns, their faces misty with moisture. Even more astonishing was the striking resemblance between their faces, like reflections in a mirror, from their eyebrows and lips to their facial features and expressions. They were breathtakingly beautiful, yet fragile like delicate, easily broken porcelain dolls. Lin Chen was momentarily stunned. Leah, standing beside him, instinctively covered her mouth, her eyes filled with astonishment. What stunned him wasn't just their exceptional beauty, but also the fact that they were twins. Twin beauties with completely identical genes. Rare even before the apocalypse, were exponentially rarer and posed a greater threat in the chaotic, precarious environment of the post-apocalyptic world. In his previous life, struggling to survive for 5 years, he had never encountered such a pair. In just 2 days since his rebirth, he had encountered a stunning flight attendant like Li Yang, and now, he had stumbled upon these two exquisitely beautiful twin sisters. Chapter 19 Zhang Yingsu Zhang Yingyu. Just a second later, his powerful willpower pulled him back to reality. In the apocalypse, beauty often comes with danger. Can you speak? His voice was low and scrutinizing, the gun in his hand slightly lowered, but not completely down. Although his intuition and observation told him that these two were not infected, caution had long been his survival instinct. The two girls were clearly stunned, and only when they heard clear human voices did they seem to regain a little of their senses from extreme fear. When they realized that the people standing in front of them were not monsters, but living people, and one of them was a girl who looked about their age and had an outstanding temperament, the instinct for survival finally overwhelmed their fear. The two spoke almost simultaneously, their voices clear as wind chimes, with obvious sobs, yet strangely synchronized. We can speak. We're not zombies. We really aren't, older sister, not monsters. We're people. Living people, younger sister. Seeing this, Lia's vigilance relaxed considerably. She crouched down, trying to soften her tone. Don't be afraid, we're survivors too. How did you end up hiding here? We're second-year students in the dance department of Yangchang Art Academy, the slightly more composed girl, the older sister, explained urgently, speaking quickly. The welcome party is next week, and the department sent us to choose our costumes. We just finished trying on a few outfits. We were about to come out to pay when we heard screams outside. Through the crack in the door, we saw someone being bitten, and then they turned into those horrible monsters. We were terrified, so we hid back in the fitting room, covered ourselves with our clothes, and didn't dare move or to make a sound. Lin Chen's gaze swept over the expensive gowns scattered on the fitting room floor, the delicate lace lingerie, and the shawl that had obviously been haphazardly torn off for covering. It seemed they were really engrossed in choosing. He nodded slightly, quickly observing and confirming. Their exposed skin was smooth, without any bluish-black veins, although their eyes were filled with fear. Their pupils were clear, and the whites of their eyes were normal, temporarily ruling out the possibility of infection or mutation. Name? He asked succinctly. I'm Zhang Yingsu, the older sister, the more composed girl replied. I'm Zhang Yingyu, the younger sister, the girl beside her, who looked almost identical but had a more lively and spirited air, added immediately. The two spoke almost in unison. Without introductions, it would be extremely difficult for an outsider to immediately tell who was the older and who was the younger. Lin Chen said no more and turned to continue his scavenging work. Chanel's classic handbags, Dior's current season clothing, LV suitcases. Regardless of whether they could be used right now, His principle was better to take something by mistake than let it slip by. With a thought, one expensive item after another, along with the display shelves, quickly disappeared, leaving only an empty shop. The Zhang sisters stared in disbelief, their mouths slightly agape, as if witnessing a scene from a myth. How did he do that? Those things, the younger sister, Zhang Yingyu, murmured, almost forgetting her fear. It's special ability. Li Yue explained from the side, with a hint of pride. This was a concept Lin Chen had told her during a casual chat. Spatial abilities. The two sisters' eyes instantly lit up with disbelief, a mixture of shock and hope. On the very first day of the apocalypse, in such a disparate situation, they had actually encountered the legendary ability users. Although they didn't fully understand the true weight and value of ability users in the apocalypse, they instinctively knew that this was undoubtedly a ray of light in the darkness, a savior sent from heaven. Li Yu walked to the sofa in the shop where customers could rest and sat down, slightly relaxing her tense nerves. The Zhang sisters, like two cautious kittens, followed closely behind her. They began to anxiously and nervously inquire about the situation outside, their eyes filled with a thirst for information and uncertainty about the future. Yan. Sister Yan, Zhang Yingsu was clearly more assertive than her sister. She took a deep breath and mustered her courage to speak. Can we come with you? She knew very well that the probability of two girls with no ability to protect themselves surviving alone in this hellish world was almost zero. To survive, they had to rely on the strong. Yes. Sister Ya, we'll be very obedient. We can learn to do everything, laundry, cooking, cleaning. We absolutely won't cause you any trouble. Zhang Yingyu quickly added, her pretty face full of pleading, making it hard to refuse. This. Li Yu looked at Lin Chen with some difficulty. I can't make that decision. Lin Chen had just cleared the last shelf, turned around, and calmly swept his gaze over the two sisters. You can come along. The two sisters' faces immediately lit up with surprise. But Lin Chen's next words made their hearts jump. But you must obey orders unconditionally. My orders are the rules for your actions. Those who disobey will not be spared, and their only fate will be death. His tone was calm, even somewhat cold. However, as long as you are loyal and useful, I will do my best to keep you alive. Yes. We will definitely be obedient. Absolutely obedient. The two sisters nodded incessantly like chicks pecking at rice. The relief of surviving a disaster and their reliance on a strong person made them make their choice without hesitation. A moment later, even the warehouse at the back of the shop was emptied by Lin Chen. Xiaoya, Lin Chen instructed Li Ye as he walked towards the next shop, if we encounter any suitable survivors who are willing to obey, we can take them along after evaluation. Remember, for now, only consider women. Having learned a painful lesson from being betrayed by his brothers in his previous life, he was somewhat skeptical or even afraid to believe in the so-called loyalty and brotherhood between men in a post-apocalyptic world. In a new world where resources are scarce and strength reigns supreme, ambition, greed, and betrayal often go hand in hand with male instincts. At least for the current stage, forming a female team with absolute loyalty at its core was a safer choice. Li Yu immediately nodded in agreement. Understood, Brother Lin. Then, she quickly led the still somewhat bewildered but trying to keep along sisters, Zhang Yingsu and Zhang Yingyu, and hurried after Lin Chen. Lin Chen continued his methodical sweep of the second floor of the mall, from affordable international fast fashion brands to luxurious designer lingerie counters. From vibrant sportswear boutiques to haute couture stores, wherever he went, shelves and merchandise vanished. Even the large fitting room mirrors were taken into his space. In the coming long, dark age, a clean, intact mirror may become a rare commodity, possessing unexpected trading value. Chapter 20 Eccentric Men and Women. The battle continued. Barrett's ammo gone? No problem. Lin Chen's mind flickered, and the heavy sniper rifle vanished from his hand. The next second, a brand new, gleaming, fully loaded identical weapon appeared in his grasp. The change of weapon was fluid and seamless, as if he had practiced it 1,000 times. Li Ye also occasionally took the opportunity to practice her marksmanship, targeting lone zombies that were stationary or moving slowly in the distance. The twins, Zhang Yingsu and Zhang Yingyu, followed closely at the back of the group, their faces deathly pale. Every time they saw zombies had shattered by a bullet or beam of light, black and red filth splattering, the two sisters couldn't help but bend over and gag. But their stomachs were already empty, only burning stomach acid surging up, bringing waves of painful spasms. However, they tightly covered their mouths, afraid to make a sound, and even more afraid to fall behind. Outside was an endless sea of monsters, devouring anyone they could find, but here, at least there was an incredibly powerful man who could offer them a glimmer of hope. A strong will to survive overcame their extreme physical discomfort. They bit their lower lips so hard they bled, forcing themselves to keep up with the two reassuring figures ahead. Leah caught a glimpse of the two sisters' disheveled appearance, struggling to suppress vomit and with red eyes, and couldn't help but recall her similar experience in front of the villa a few hours earlier, her heart softening slightly. She slowed her pace to walk alongside the two sisters, lowering her voice to say, "Don't push yourself, get used to it slowly. Outside, it's completely chaotic." She took out her phone. "Look at this, the short video platforms are all over the place. Some people are live streaming the terrifying process of being chased by zombies. The camera is so shaky you can't see anything, only screams. Some are posting so-called survival tutorials, teaching people how to pierce a zombie's head with a sharpened steel bar. But more often, there's robbery, arson, and rape." She paused, her voice taking on a cold, realistic tone. "At first, there were people in the comments section cursing where's humanity, beasts, but now? The cursing is getting less and less. Because everyone has seen clearly that the order has been shattered. Everyone has a wild beast locked inside, and when the apocalypse comes, the cage door naturally opens." This was not an exaggeration, but the cruel truth they had pieced together from fragmented online information and the faint commotion coming from outside the window as they walked along the way. Unbeknownst to them, the group following them had grown considerably. The new additions were all young women, beautiful, their expressions terrified yet their eyes clear. Without exception, they had all been discovered alone or with female companions, without any men by their side. As they approached a cozy-looking mother and baby room, a man and a woman hastily emerged. The man was overweight, wearing a wrinkled polo shirt. The woman's heavy makeup was now smudged, and her clothes were slightly disheveled. Seeing Lin Chen wielding a menacing heavy sniper rifle and followed by a group of girls, their eyes lit up. They immediately recognized him as a powerful Thai and hurriedly tried to join him. Leah stepped forward, blocking Lin Chen's path, her tone calm yet unyielding. "Sorry. Our group is not accepting men at the moment." "Why?" The heavily made-up woman suddenly raised her voice, sharp and piercing. Her gaze swept quickly over Leah and the twins behind her, carrying a hint of barely perceptible contempt and resentment. "Weren't you saved by him too? What are you pretending to be so high and mighty for? We're all in trouble, can't we help each other?" She was clearly still stuck in the old world mindset, believing that youth and beauty were still unimpeded privileges. She completely failed to notice Leah and Lin Chen's almost identical tactical attire, the same weapons at their waists, and the unspoken understanding and trust between them. Her boyfriend, on the other hand, plastered a fawning smile on his face, repeatedly assuring Lin Chen, brother, take me in. I'm strong. I can move things, keep watch, and do chores. Don't worry, I'll absolutely obey orders and won't cause you any trouble." However, as he spoke, his gaze uncontrollably drifted frequently to the young girls behind Lin Chen, his eyes revealing undisguised greed and some kind of filthy thought. Leah sneered, her gaze sweeping over the man like a knife. "You've got the guts? Then you'd better get rid of the liar girlfriend." "Oh no, this ordinary friend just told. She said you were just ordinary friends who happened to be hiding together, but when we opened the curtain to the mother and baby room, your hands never let go." The heavily made-up woman's face turned deathly pale, her eyes filled with panic. She immediately changed her target, ignoring Leah and turning to Lin Chen. Her voice suddenly became soft and seductive, and her body leaned forward slightly, revealing her curves. "Handsome, my name is Xiaoli. As long as you let me follow you, I'm willing to do anything for you." As she spoke, she tried to take another step closer, her chest brushing against Lin Chen's arm almost imperceptibly. Lin Chen didn't even flinch, simply turning slightly to avoid her contact, his eyes suddenly turning icy cold, uttering a single word, "Get lost." The woman froze on the spot, her seductive smile instantly freezing, staring at Lin Chen in disbelief, as if she couldn't understand why her assets had failed. Her attempt to seduce him failed completely. Her face flushed red and then paled, and finally, in a fit of anger and embarrassment, she gritted her teeth, grabbed her still stunned boyfriend, and staggered away in the opposite direction. They hadn't gone far when the faint sounds of their suppressed, heated argument drifted over. interspersed with curses like useless, liar, and I shouldn't have trusted you in the first place. The sounds were particularly jarring in the empty mall. Lin Chen ignored them, as if brushing away a minor speck of dust, and continued his search with his gun. Along the way, they encountered many more survivors hiding, some huddled behind debris in the fire escape, others huddled under brightly colored plastic slides in the children's play area. Most people, seeing their armed group, especially Lin Chen's menacing aura and heavy weapons, chose to warily keep their distance or silently watch them leave. In the extreme panic of the apocalypse, people no longer easily trusted strangers, much less believed in unprovoked saviors. But there were exceptions. Those who actively requested to join were almost exclusively women. If any lone or small group of men tried to approach and asked to join, Liu would subtly move to stand between them. Her tone was polite yet carried an undeniable distance. I'm sorry, our capacity is limited, and our supplies are running low. We are currently at full capacity. Chapter 21 The End Times reveal human nature. The girls who remained weren't all as stunningly beautiful as the Zhang sisters. However, most were pretty and well-mannered, their eyes quickly clearing after the initial fear. They observed silently, followed quietly, without crying or making any special demands or requests. When they witnessed Lin Chen effortlessly make an entire shelf disappear and calmly kill one ferocious zombie after another, their last vestiges of hesitation and fear about following strangers were quickly replaced by a strong will to survive and awe of his power. The girls' gazes as they looked at Lin Chen's back gradually shifted from initial fear and confusion to a complex mix of dependence, or an initial trust. Li Yan naturally took on the role of second in command, taking compressed biscuits and water from Lin Chen and distributing them to the newcomers, quietly comforting them. She even assisted Lin Chen in dealing with the scattered zombies appearing on the flanks and rear when he cleared obstacles ahead. Her words were gentle, her movements decisive and efficient, quickly calming the hastily assembled team. Lin Chen remained outwardly calm, but inwardly he was increasingly satisfied with Li Ya's performance. This girl was so sensible and easy to manage. He didn't know that Li Ya's maturity and clarity beyond her years stemmed from her painful upbringing. As the illegitimate daughter of a real estate tycoon, she grew up amidst her mother's constant tears and the indifference and exclusion of her father's legal wife. She witnessed how her father manipulated emotions with money and power, and she personally witnessed how her half-siblings fought for inheritance in her father's favor, framing, betraying, and even turning against each other. She saw the naked greed, hypocrisy, and malice of human nature a decade earlier than most of her peers. Therefore, in this apocalyptic world where all human desires were amplified to an extreme, and the strong preyed on the weak, she was exceptionally clear-headed and calm. Beauty and fragility were no longer privileges, but rather sources of disaster. Only by attaching oneself to a true strong man and striving to prove one's worth can one possibly survive, or even, live a life barely worthy of being called human. On the 5th floor of a shopping mall, inside a high-end Western restaurant known for its romantic ambience. The atmosphere, however, was anything but romantic. Instead, it was thick with a tense, bloody smell of battle. The restaurant's head chef, Hao Yuang, was a bald, fat man with a burly face and a thick neck. He was leading 7 or 8 male waiters in a standoff with a dozen or so terrified and helpless female waitresses across the street. The restaurant's glass doors were tightly shut, but outside, a dozen attractive zombies were frantically pounding on the glass, emitting a sickening scraping sound and hissing. On the ground lay 2 young female corpses. They were the waitresses who had fiercely resisted and insulted Hao Yuang, calling him a toad trying to eat swan meat. Hao Yuang had personally hacked them to death with a meat cleaver, their blood soaking the expensive carpet. President Su, Manager Su, why bother? Hao Yuang licked his thick lips. A lewd and greedy glint flashed in his green-beaded eyes as he stared intently at the composed office lady opposite him, who remained calm even in this dire situation. Look outside. It's full of man-eating monsters. Who knows when this blood rain will stop? The internet is full of videos of cries for help and riots. The authorities haven't said a word. This is the apocalypse. Stop dreaming about rescue. He took a step closer, his voice seductive and threatening. If you submit to me and behave, I'll guarantee you a life of luxury. 100 times better than those worthless wretches outside who live hand to mouth. Hao Yuang, you're dreaming. The woman called President Su was Su Yun, the restaurant manager. Her eyes widened in anger, her face pale, but her back ramrod straight. Even if I die, I won't submit to scum like you. You killed Xiao Mei and Xiao Lian, you'll get your retribution sooner or later. Retribution? Ha ha ha. Hao Yuan laughed as if he'd heard the biggest joke in the world. He twisted his thick neck, making a cracking sound. Manager Su, it seems you still don't understand the situation. I'm someone who has awakened superpowers. He proudly raised his right hand, a faint, yellowish-brown glow swirling on his short, thick fingers, giving him a rather eerie appearance. A male waiter standing behind Hao Yuan immediately chimed in obsequiously, "Yes, yes, yes. Manager Su, Brother Hao isn't an ordinary person anymore. He's a superpowered individual. Only by following Brother Hao can we survive." As he spoke, his eyes involuntarily darted to the two supervisors behind Su Yun, Zhou Xiaoman and Zhang Jing, whose looks were second only to Su Yun's. His mouth practically watered. "Brother Hao, if you manage to get President Su, then, those two girls, could we have some fun with them?" Slap. Hao Yuan slapped the waiter hard across the face. "You fucking dream. Those are mine. Get lost." The slapped waiter cowered, apologizing repeatedly, but cursing inwardly. However, Hao Yuan touched his bald head, softening his tone. His gaze swept over the female waitresses across from him, their faces filled with fear and trembling. Besides General Manager Su, Supervisor Zhou, and Supervisor Zhang, the other women can be yours. Upon hearing this, the men behind Hao Yuan immediately became excited, their eyes darting towards the women with even greater blatant arrogance. "Thanks, Brother Hao. Brother Hao is awesome. These women are always so arrogant, today we'll teach them a lesson." The women across from him were filled with righteous indignation, cursing incessantly. But about 7 or 8 women showed obvious hesitation and fear on their faces. They took a slight step back, not joining in the condemnation of Hao Yuan, their eyes flickering uncertainly. Just then, in this tense standoff, bang, 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 several muffled gunshots suddenly rang out from the corridor outside the restaurant, clearly audible. "President Su. It's gunfire. Is it the rescue team? The army?" A young waitress, as if grasping at a last straw, asked in a trembling voice, her eyes rekindling with hope. Hao Yuan and his men's expressions changed drastically. The men gripped their kitchen knives, rolling pins, and other weapons with even greater tension. They could tell that it wasn't the sound of zombies, it sounded more like gunfire with a silencer. "Damn it!" Hao Yuan's eyes flashed with ferocity, his fleshy face trembling. "We might as well go all the way. Whoever they are, we'll kill them all when they come in. Then we'll say, it was the zombies. There'll be no way to prove it when they're dead. Brother Hao, spare us. We're willing to join you. We'll do whatever you say." One of the 7 or 8 women who had hesitated earlier suddenly knelt down, kowtowing repeatedly to Hao Yuan and begging for mercy. As if in a chain reaction, 6 or 7 more women immediately followed suit, their faces filled with fear of death and submission to the stronger. "Fine. You know what's good for you." Hao Yuan sneered, but there was no trust in his eyes. "Want to live? Fine. Each of you go over there and kill one who's still standing and resisting. Prove your loyalty with your actions. Otherwise," he brandished the still bloodied meat cleaver in his hand, "I'll slaughter you all too." The kneeling women were struck dumb, finally understanding that Hao Yuan had no intention of letting anyone go. He simply wanted to force them to kill each other, completely cutting off their escape route. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Survival. The instinct for survival and the fear of death instantly overwhelmed reason and conscience. Several kneeling women, their eyes turning frenzied, suddenly grabbed anything they could find, broken plates, heavy condiment bottles, even high heels, screaming as they lunged at their companions who had just stood side by side. "Ah! No! Xia Fang, are you crazy? I'll fight you to the death." Cries, screams, curses, the sounds of flesh colliding, shattering glass, instantly filled the entire upscale restaurant. The once elegant restaurant had been completely transformed into a bloody killing field. The zombies outside, smelling the increasingly strong stench of blood, pounded and rammed even more frantically. Meanwhile, Lin Chen, following the commotion, had reached the 5th floor. "Xia, wait for me at the elevator," he instructed, then walked alone towards the upscale Western restaurant, gun in hand. Almost all the zombies roaming the fifth-floor corridor were drawn outside by the shouts and screams from inside the restaurant. "Help! I'll fight you to the death!" Inside the restaurant, Josiah flailing her fork in futile resistance. A male waiter with a ferocious expression held a fruit knife, the tip already aimed at her chest. Bang! A muffled thud, and the knife-wielding man fell to the ground, a bloody hole opening between his eyebrows. Bang! Almost simultaneously, another gunshot rang out, and Hao Yuang, who was choking Su-Yun and attempting to assault her, had his right wrist burst open in blood. The continuous gunfire brought the fighting inside the restaurant to an abrupt halt. A deathly silence instantly enveloped the area. Everyone stared blankly at the figure that had suddenly appeared at the door. Dressed in a jet-black tactical uniform, he held a sniper rifle in his hand. His expression was cold and icy, and no one dared to meet his gaze. Outside the restaurant door, zombies were still howling and thrashing about, as if he had appeared out of thin air. Lin Chen's gaze quickly swept across the entire area, finally landing on the office lady in a business suit by the wall, clutching her neck and coughing violently. A simple, fitted white shirt paired with a high-waisted black skirt accentuated her slender and upright figure, which stood at approximately 1.7 meters tall. Her skin remained as white and lustrous as jade even in the dim light. Her temperament was gentle yet possessed an unyielding dignity, even in her current disheveled state. The stubborn and unyielding brightness in her brows remained striking. She was a woman whose gaze was instantly captivating. Behind her, Josiah and Zhang Jing, still shaken, were also rare beauties, though slightly less striking than her. At this moment, all three stared, mouths slightly agape, at the man who had descended like a god. A dozen corpses lay scattered on the ground, and several severely wounded individuals groaned softly. Hao Yuang, clutching his bleeding right wrist, narrowed his beady eyes, scrutinizing Lin Chen intently. Not from the military, no shoulder insignia, and the undershirt isn't a standard military uniform. His mind raced, enduring the excruciating pain, as he tried to secretly gather his newly awakened, still somewhat unskilled, earth elemental power. Brother, why are you attacking us?" He feigned composure, striking first. "These women, they're infected. They're about to turn into zombies. We're clearing out a threat." Su-Yun immediately looked up, her voice hoarse as she shouted, "Don't believe him. He's lying. He killed people and is trying to force us. He's trying to silence us. Brother Bing, we're not infected, they killed these sisters." Josiah and Zhang Jing also hurriedly explained, their voices trembling with tears, pointing to the female corpses on the ground. "Die?" Hao Yuang's eyes flashed with ferocity, his long accumulated power finally managing to coalesce into his left fist. A layer of yellowish-brown light enveloped his fist, accompanied by a whistling sound, as it slammed towards Lin Chen. He was confident that this sudden attack would be enough to break any unsuspecting person. "Watch out!" Su-Yun and the other two women cried out in unison, their hearts leaping into their throats. Lin Chen didn't even move a step, only slightly raising his wrist, the muzzle of his gun adjusting its angle with a speed imperceptible to the naked eye. Bang! A gunshot rang out, even more muffled than before. Hao Yuang's figure, halfway through his charge, abruptly stopped, a clear bullet hole appearing between his eyebrows. His head exploded, red and white matter mixed with bone fragments splattering onto the faces of his terrified henchmen behind him. His concentrated supernatural power instantly dissipated, and his massive body crashed to the ground, ending his sinful and short life. The other male waiters, seeing this, were either terrified out of their wits and turned to run towards the kitchen's back door, or their eyes turned red with rage, howling and grabbing kitchen knives and chairs to fight desperately. However, their only response was a dozen gunshots. Bang! 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 The gunfire ceased, and the restaurant returned to deathly silence, broken only by the increasingly frenzied crashing of the zombies outside and the heavy stench of blood in the air. Su-Yun unconsciously swallowed, her throat dry. Josiah and Zhang Jing were already huddled together in fear, their faces ashen. They hadn't expected Lin Chen to be so decisive, nor had they imagined that a thug like Hao Yuang, possessing superpowers, would be so utterly powerless against him, like a chicken or a dog. From breaking down the door to killing all the thugs, his expression remained completely unchanged. He was terrifyingly calm, as if everything was under control, and he was simply completing a routine cleaning task. Bang! Crash! With a loud bang, the heavily damaged glass door of the restaurant finally succumbed to the pressure and shattered completely. Dozens of zombies, drawn by the strong smell of blood, surged in like a flood, their dark pupils locked onto the presence of the living. Lin Chen didn't even turn around, he merely shifted slightly, and his rifle fired again. Bang! 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 The gunshots were continuous and steady. Each bullet accurately pierced the eye sockets or foreheads of the zombies. The zombies that rushed in fell to the ground one after another with headshots, splattering blood, and not a single one could get within 3 meters of him. A moment later, the roars outside the door subsided. Liu then led Zhang Yingsu and the other girls cautiously into the restaurant. Seeing the corpses scattered on the floor, clearly human rather than zombies, and the 3 trembling, disheveled yet undeniably beautiful women by the wall, Liu instantly understood most of it. She quickly stepped forward, knelt down in front of Su Yun, and said in an extremely gentle voice, "It's all right, you're safe now, don't be afraid." The fear and grievance of surviving the ordeal finally broke down the 3 women's carefully constructed defenses. Su Yun slowly knelt down, buried her head in her knees, and her shoulders began to tremble uncontrollably. Zhou Xiaoman and Zhang Jing hugged each other and burst into tears, tears mingling with the blood on their faces, releasing their immense fear and sorrow. Chapter 23 Choice. Li Ya and several other girls who had also experienced the trauma silently gathered around, offering tissues and water, and whispering words of comfort. From their fragmented accounts, they learned of the coercion they had suffered, witnessing the murder of their companions, and even being treated like merchandise and manipulated. All the surviving girls' gazes involuntarily turned to the man's back at the end of the corridor. At that moment, they suddenly realized with absolute clarity, in the apocalypse, there is no law, no order. And once the human heart breaks free of its constraints, the malice and cruelty it reveals are often colder, more ruthless, and more despairing than the zombies who only know how to devour. If they wanted to survive in this hell, perhaps, they really needed a powerful protector who, at least for now, still had a moral compass. Liu finally understood more deeply why Lin Chen insisted on not taking in any male members for the time being. In the early stages of power imbalance and moral collapse, certain desires and evil thoughts were too easily out of control. 3 hours later, the entire 5-story, sprawling Shanghai Xiandi shopping mall was finally completely cleared. All the lurking zombies had been eliminated, and Lin Chen had looted every uncontaminated but still valuable item from each shop on every floor. Lin Chen led his team back to the empty atrium on the first floor. This time, he was no longer followed by just a few people. Besides Liu, who had always stayed close by his side, the team now consisted of 20 female survivors, including Su Yun, Zhou Xiaoman, and Zhang Jing. Most of them were covered in dirt and looked exhausted, but their eyes were no longer as unfocused as before. They seemed to have regained their composure. Lin Chen stopped, turned around, and calmly surveyed the group. His voice wasn't loud, but it sounded exceptionally clear in the emptiness and silence of the hall. "You all know what's happening outside." He pointed to the phones most of them were still clutching tightly in their hands. Whether it's short videos or social media, it's flooded with apocalyptic scenes and information. He paused, his gaze slowly sweeping over each face, young or mature, but all filled with unease and anticipation. "The zombies in the mall have been cleared out. You now have 2 choices. First, stay here. Wait for the rescue you might be hoping for. Second, leave now. Go outside, gamble on your own luck, and find another way to survive." His tone remained calm, without deliberately exaggerating fear or making false promises. But this calm statement carried more weight than any shout, like a hammer blow striking each person's heart. "But I suggest," he continued, his gaze frankly meeting the group's, "that you come with me. Currently, I cannot guarantee absolute safety. There is no absolutely safe place in the apocalypse." He spoke candidly, "But you have all witnessed my special ability. It can hold a massive amount of supplies. To be honest, I have already stockpiled enough food, water, medicine, and other necessities to last us a long time. At least, by following me, you won't have to worry about starving, dying of thirst, or freezing to death due to lack of warm clothing in the short term." He paused briefly, adding a crucial condition: "Of course, I won't support a bunch of idle people who only eat and do no work. If you want to stay and receive shelter and supplies, you must pay the corresponding price. You will need to participate in combat, clear zombies, collect supplies, and undertake art and logistical work to the best of your ability. In the apocalypse, there are no parasites." Although Lin Chen knew in his heart that as long as he gave them the creation crystal, These girls would eventually develop absolute loyalty and obedience to him. He still wanted to conduct this selection process. The selection criteria would no longer be simply appearance, but rather character, courage, and the most basic survival wisdom. The apocalypse is long and cruel. If those gathered around him are selfish, cowardly, scheming, or completely unable to adapt to the bloody rules, even if he could forcibly control them with a creation crystal, it would only continuously drain his patience, energy, and precious resources. He feared that he might eventually be unable to resist personally eliminating such burdens, which would be a true waste of the creation crystal. He raised his wrist and glanced at his tactical watch. "I'll give you 10 minutes to consider. Stay, or leave, make your own choice." With that, he said no more, turned, and walked quietly to the shattered glass doors of the mall. He left the space for thought and decision entirely to the group of women behind him, whose fates had suddenly taken a turn. Almost without hesitation, Leah was the first to step forward and walk to Lin Chen's side. She didn't speak, but simply reached out and gently took Lin Chen's strong arm, standing quietly beside him. Her action was both a silent support and a clear example for those still hesitant. Immediately afterward, Zhang Yingsu, who had been tightly holding her sister's hand, exchanged a glance with Zhang Yingyu. The two sisters simultaneously wiped away their tears, held hands, and jumped to stand beside Li Yang. They had tried countless times to contact their family, but the phone was always busy or unreachable. They knew in their hearts that their loved ones, thousands of miles away, were probably doomed. This man before them was their only hope. Josiah Min nervously tugged at Su Yun's sleeve, her voice still trembling slightly. "Sister Yun, we really have to go with him? To a completely unfamiliar place?" Zhang Jing also looked at her anxiously. As the youngest and most promising regional operations manager of this chain of upscale restaurants, Su Yun had always been their trusted boss at work, and now she was their pillar of support. Su Yun didn't answer immediately. Her gaze swept over the crowd, landing on Lin Chen's tall and aloof back. After a moment, she took a deep breath, her tone regaining its usual calm and composure. "Going, we definitely have to go." Seeing the surprise and confusion on their faces, she lowered her voice, but spoke clearly, explaining her reasoning to them. A man like Hao Yuang, on the very first day of the apocalypse, tried to use brute force and his newly acquired superpowers to distribute women as spoils of war, thereby winning people's hearts and establishing his kingdom. But this guy at the door. She gestured to Lin Chen. From the moment he came in to kill, to emptying the mall, and just now giving out choices, did you see him touch a single woman? He didn't even glance at her. This shows that he at least currently has his own rules and bottom line, and isn't just a beast driven purely by desire. She paused, then continued calmly, "More importantly, he has a gun. And powerful. His superpower allows him to conjure up all the supplies in an entire shop out of thin air. What does this mean? It means he controls the most basic and crucial resources for our survival: food, water, and a safe place to live. Following him, at least for the short term, we won't have to worry about our next meal or a sip of water, wandering aimlessly like headless flies through a city full of monsters." Josiah Min bit her chapped lips, hesitating. "But what if he changes in the future? Like Hao Yuang?" "At least not now," Su Yun said, looking directly into her eyes, her tone resolute. "Besides, Xiamin, Xiajing, do we have a better choice? Are we really going to leave this mall alone? There are endless zombies outside, blood rain has polluted almost all the water sources, the police and the army haven't shown any signs of large-scale action yet, and the internet is in complete chaos and despair." She looked around at the other survivors, some bewildered, some hopeful. "Unless you're confident you can survive 3 days in this hell on your own, or you have the ability to quickly build a team that is completely obedient to you and can protect itself, otherwise, wake up. The most rational and likely way to survive right now is to follow a strong person who has power, rules, and hasn't completely lost control." Josiah Min and Zhang Jing exchanged a glance, finally made up their minds, and quickly followed Su Yun's footsteps, joining the group. Chapter 24. Returning to the villa. Hearing Su Yun's calm analysis, the other girls exchanged glances, their resolve shifting rapidly. None of them felt capable of acting alone, and none harbored unrealistic fantasies about the rescue. 10 minutes later. Behind Lin Chen stood 2 rows of 14 people each. They were of varying ages, appearances, and temperaments, but all shared a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Ultimately, 6 chose to leave, Driven by concern for their potentially surviving relatives, extreme fear of the unfamiliar environment, or a sliver of expectation for the authorities. The 14 who remained were mostly people whose families were missing and their fates unknown, or simply struggling alone in this megacity. Lin Chen was already satisfied that so many remained, and that their overall quality was quite good. Once the time was right, after they all consumed the creation crystals to awaken their abilities, with a little training and integration, they would become a considerable fighting force. Not only would it better protect the stronghold, but it would also greatly accelerate his acquisition of zombie cores and the feeding of the creation beads. Today's harvest was plentiful. It was time to return. Lin Chen stood at the shattered entrance of the mall, gazing at the distant street. There, shadowy figures were regrouping, their roars echoing through the empty, desolate streets, sending chills down one's spine. He knew that the night was the zombies' domain. Human vision was severely limited in the dark, while these monsters, through evolution or mutation, possessed exceptionally keen hearing and smell. They could easily pinpoint the presence and movement of living beings in the pitch-black night, becoming even more frenzied and dangerous. After more than 9 hours of continuous high-intensity combat, even with his superpowers, waves of mental and physical exhaustion washed over him. "It's time to go back," he announced calmly, withdrawing his gaze. He led the group to the white heaves on the side of the mall, and with a thought, a silver-gray minibus appeared out of thin air before them. The bus body was clearly specially reinforced, the glass was made of dark, multi-layered bulletproof material, the chassis was extremely high with a reinforced frame, and the tires were heavy-duty off-road models. He had borrowed it from a naval port in New York City, USA. "Get in," Lin Chen ordered. 15 girls boarded the bus in order. Leah was the last to board, carefully checking and closing all the windows, then pulling up the inner sunshade to completely separate the inside and outside of the bus into two worlds. Lin Chen sat in the driver's seat, and soon the engine roared to life. He floored the accelerator, and the minibus, like a wild beast, surged out of the mall exit, smashing the barrier to pieces, scattering wood chips and metal fragments everywhere. On the way back to the villa area, they frequently encountered abandoned, crashed, or overturned vehicles blocking the road. Lin Chen had no intention of going around them. With a sweep of his mind, the obstacles disappeared into thin air, stored in his ability space, and the road instantly became clear again. This simple and direct method of passage left the girls on the bus speechless, deepening their understanding of Lin Chen's strength. About half an hour later, the minibus entered the villa area and drove expertly into the underground garage of Leah's villa. Leah got out of the bus beforehand and unlocked the garage door with her fingerprint. The vehicle drove in, and the gate slowly closed, completely shutting out the bloodshed and screams from the outside world. The group returned to the living room on the first floor via the internal staircase. Only then did everyone's tense nerves truly relax, and they all let out a sigh of relief. A warm yellow glow from the crystal chandelier illuminated the luxurious and tidy living room, making the apocalyptic madness outside seem like a distant nightmare. Lin Chen looked around at everyone and asked, "Who among you can cook?" If no one could, he planned to use the large meals he had stockpiled in his space yesterday. But if someone could cook, he planned to save those delicacies for later, since such delicious food would become increasingly rare in the future. "I can." Su Yun was the first to step forward. As the manager of a high-end restaurant, she had some culinary skills to maintain basic control over kitchen operations and food quality. "We can help too." Zhou Xiaoman and Zhang Jing quickly raised their hands. Having worked in the catering industry for a long time, they were quite adept at making decent home-style dishes, soups, and fried rice. Lin Chen nodded and led the three into the kitchen. With a slight thought, he heard a clattering sound, and the countertop instantly became piled high with various ingredients: bright red chunks of beef and lamb, plump frozen shrimp, distinct grains of rice, a variety of fresh vegetables, and entire boxes of unopened seasonings. The items practically overflowed the countertop. Back in the living room, he said to the remaining people, "Everyone, go and tidy up your rooms and find one you like." Before he finished speaking, a pile of soft, comfortable bedding appeared as if by magic: fluffy down comforters, delicate pure cotton 4-piece sets, supportive memory foam pillows, thick, warm cashmere blankets, all spoils from his pre-apocalyptic raids on high-end home furnishing stores. He turned to Li Yi and instructed, "You're in charge of assigning rooms. Try to make everyone comfortable and familiarize themselves with the environment. After making the arrangements, Lin Chen didn't say anything more and turned to go straight upstairs. The master bedroom was originally Li Ya's property, but now he was naturally its master. Locking the door behind him, shutting out the subtle sounds downstairs, he finally gained a moment of peace and solitude. Sitting on the soft, white bed, he began to concentrate, putting one zombie corpse after another stored in his special ability space into the primordial creation pearl. He had already fed 25 corpses outside, and he continued to feed them until the 75th corpse was absorbed, bringing the total to exactly 100. A burning sensation suddenly came from between his eyebrows. Chapter 25 Upgrading the Primordial Creation Bead. A flash of purple light streaked through his mind, followed by a stream of information. Primordial Creation Pearl, bound to host soul, current level, level 2, potential development, consumes energy to randomly develop a new S-rank ability. Recharge time: 9 days. Foundation of the world, the pearl contains the seed of the fundamental laws of the new world. The current internal space has stably expanded to 4,000. Creation Spirit Spring, daily production of Creation Spirit Crystals. 10. After use, it can awaken at least a minimum A-rank ability and become loyal to the host. Level restriction: the host's own ability level cannot exceed the current level of the Primordial Creation Pearl. In an instant, he could feel that the world inside the pearl had suddenly become much more spacious. The piglets, Chinese rural dogs, tabby cats, and other livestock cubs, which had previously seemed somewhat cramped due to the small space, were now excitedly running and frolicking on the newly expanded land. The Creation Spirit Spring had also expanded, and 10 more crystal-clear Creation Spirit crystals condensed beside the spring. Lin Chen couldn't help but smile. So leveling up has rewards that refresh? That's not bad. He took out a 300 level 1 zombie crystal cores that Li Yan had specially collected. After a moment's thought, he began to swallow them one after another. Warm currents exploded in his body time and time again, washing over his meridians, strengthening his muscles and bones, and his surging power rose steadily. When the energy of the 150th crystal core was completely absorbed, the changes in his body reached a critical point. All 3 S-level abilities simultaneously advanced to level 2. Spatial transmission: the maximum teleportation distance was extended to 200 meters, and the maximum weight that could be carried was increased to about 400 kilograms of his own weight. Mind control: mental strength was increased by 20 times. Command implantation was more subtle and rapid. The effect lasted for 20 minutes, and the memory traces after the target regained consciousness were more blurred. Extraordinary body: the basic physical attributes were enhanced by 20 times in all aspects. The force of a punch was enough to shatter an ordinary concrete wall, and the short distance burst speed exceeded that of a regular car. The toughness of his skin and the density of his muscles were greatly increased, and ordinary handgun bullets could hardly cause effective penetrating wounds. This improvement, it's too domineering. Lin Chen clenched his fist, his knuckles cracking slightly. An unprecedented sense of power filled his body, almost making him roar with excitement. But the next second, reason quickly overwhelmed his elation. The price was equally staggering. It took 100 zombie corpses to raise the Creation Pearl by 1 level, and 150 level 1 crystal cores to push his ability. Actually, 3 simultaneous abilities, from level 1 to level 2. And this was just the beginning. As the number and level of abilities increased, the resources required later would be astronomical. The energy purity of a level 1 zombie's crystal core could only push the corresponding ability to the peak of the 2nd tier at most. To break through to the 3rd tier, one had to use crystal cores from higher level zombies, such as level 2 zombies, as catalysts and keys. Moreover, the higher the tier, the level of the crystal cores used for upgrading could not be more than 2 levels lower than the current ability level, otherwise the effect would be negligible. Low-level crystal cores can always be obtained if you're willing to kill. The apocalypse has only just begun. There aren't any 2nd or 3rd tier zombies yet. 2nd tier ability is already the limit. He sighed, looking at the 150 remaining level 1 crystal cores in his consciousness space, and the mountain of zombie corpses piled up like small mountains. Hesitation was only for a moment. He made a snap decision and threw all the remaining 1,000+ zombie corpses into the Primordial Creation Pearl. Purple light shone again in the depths of his sea of consciousness, even more intensely than before. Primordial Creation Pearl level upgraded to level 3, internal space greatly expanded by 100 times current total area. 400,000, More than 1,000 corpses, only one level upgrade? Lin Chen, who had just been excited by the increase in power, now slumped against the headboard, rubbing his temples with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. At this rate of exponential growth, wouldn't it take tens of thousands of zombies to reach level 4? Level 5 would require 100,000. Am I supposed to empty the entire city of zombies? Unbelievable. Just as he was starting to feel a headache coming on, the creation bead transmitted another message: primordial creation bead, bound to host soul, current level, level 3 potential development, consumes energy to randomly develop a new S-rank ability. Recharge time is 8 days. Ability sublimation, every 8 days, accumulates one targeted enhancement opportunity. This opportunity can be consumed to directly enhance any existing ability by one level. This function shares a cooldown with potential development, and only one can be chosen per cycle. Foundation of the world, the bead contains the seed of the basic laws of the new world. The current internal space has stably expanded to 0.4 square kilometers, approximately 300 acres. Creation Spirit Spring, daily production of Creation Spirit crystals. 100. After use, it can awaken at least a minimum A-rank ability and become loyal to the host. Level restriction, the host's highest ability level cannot exceed the current level of the primordial Creation Pearl. Wait, directly upgrade ability level? One chance every 8 days. Lin Chen sat bolt upright, his fatigue vanishing, his eyes gleaming. Although each charge only allowed him to choose between gaining a new ability and upgrading an old one, this function was a crucial backdoor in the later stages when high-level crystal cores were extremely scarce, greatly alleviating his upgrade pressure. At the same time, another 100 new creation crystals condensed beside the spiritual spring of the level 3 Creation Pearl. Adding to the remaining ones, he now possessed a total of 140 creation crystals. While overjoyed, he also realized a deeper problem. The number of zombies and survivors worldwide remained enormous, and while the total number of crystal cores seemed considerable, the competition was fierce. His growth ceiling was firmly capped by the level of the primordial Creation Pearl. To become stronger, the Creation Pearl had to be upgraded first. This meant he had to find a more efficient way to obtain crystal cores in larger quantities. With a thought, his consciousness sank into the newly transformed space within the bead. The creation tree, originally only half a meter tall and shrouded in purple aura, had now grown into a towering giant 10 meters high, its branches spreading like a canopy, radiating spiritual light and displaying extraordinary grandeur. Even more astonishingly, the space was no longer a monotonous flat land. Several winding, clear water channels and several small hills of varying heights, covered in greenery, had appeared. He tried to concentrate, locking onto a small tree on a distant hillside. With a slight thought, his body instantly appeared beside the tree without any hesitation. This feeling isn't the effect of my space travel ability. He tried several times, confirming that he could move almost instantly at will within this space belonging to the creation bead. It seems this bead is truly more than just a super storage bag. It's evolving into the prototype of an independent world under my control. 400,000 square meters, equivalent to nearly 60 standard football fields, or almost 300 acres of land. With proper planning, such a scale is enough to establish a small, self-sufficient ecological community for planting, raising livestock, storage, and even building living and training facilities. However, he doesn't have time for such long-term construction right now. With sufficient resources, improving immediate combat power and dealing with the current crisis is the top priority. He replenished the feed and water for the frolicking livestock, then exited the space inside the bead. Sitting back on the bed, Lin Chen's eyes regained their determination. I must find a way to significantly accelerate the collection efficiency of crystal cores. The growth of the primordial creation bead is the true foundation and trump card for me to establish myself in this apocalypse and reach the pinnacle. Outside the window, the blood rain continued to relentlessly pound against the glass, making a pattering sound. The first chaotic and bloody day after the apocalypse had passed. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.